All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:37 PM. First thing on the agenda is to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time, I'd like to open the floor to any citizens' comments.
You want us to do a presentation?
Okay, so seeing as there's nothing there, going to open the public hearing for the FY21 budget.
So Vinny and I prepared a brief presentation just to give our community an overview of the tentative budget that was approved on January 8th. If it's okay with the school committee, we'll present from here. That way the podium will be open for any citizens who have comments or questions about the budget. Okay.
Should I call Michelle?
Are we supposed to call Michelle Bailey in?
Yes.
So I was actually just thinking that we need to, there was supposed to be someone from,
I have the phone over here. You want me to go call her?
yeah, please.
Okay.
Are we gonna bring it over here so we can
It
hear
doesn't
her?
reach that far, but you can hear her.
Okay.
Are we gonna be able, if she has questions?
Yeah. Is that her phone number?
Yes.
All right, so we're just going to call Michelle Bailey, who couldn't make it tonight, who's just going to call in and participate remotely.
We need to, next time, bring it over here so we can hear and what she's saying.
Is there a mic over there?
Hello?
Hello, Michelle. This is Vinny. You were on speakerphone.
Great, thank you.
right.
So that needs to be announced in the meeting.
Okay.
David, do you want to announce it?
Excuse me?
You need to announce that Michelle Bailey's on speakerphone.
I just announced that we were calling her, but
What?
Michelle Bailey's now joining the meeting remotely.
Okay, so as we were saying, Vinny and I have prepared a brief overview for the public regarding the FY21 tentative budget proposal that was approved on January 8th at the school committee meeting by the 5 school committee members who were present.
So our objectives for tonight is to share the FY21 leadership team's tentative budget with the community. We are clearly going to articulate what this tentative FY21 budget allows us to do and what our unmet needs are. And we are to listen to the comments from our community members in order to assess next steps and possible refinement. So on July 18th of 2019, we were presented with a preliminary budget forecast. At that time, administration was projecting an approximate $638,000 deficit. This was mainly due to the out-of-district tuition increasing approximately $503,000. In addition to that, we had to add a 7th kindergarten classroom and a 3rd pre-K classroom, which required 2 additional teachers and 1 additional teaching assistant in the pre-K classroom as well. We also calculated in health insurance for the new employees at approximately $54,000. And in addition to that, they were estimating an approximate $61,000 in savings from student transportation. All these numbers combined add up to the deficit of approximately $638,000. So what does this mean? It means while creating our FY21 budget, we are already starting the year with a 2.3% budget increase due to these unforeseen expenses that were not budgeted in FY20.
So just to give you an overview of the FY21 tentative budget, I'll start by sharing some of our goals. Our first primary goal was to develop a needs-based budget that is student-centered and fiscally responsible while also prioritizing our resources from pre-K through 12. We were also aiming to provide required and appropriate services based on student needs in order to encourage the best possible outcomes for all of our students. We also are responding to the increasing enrollment demands at pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade. Those large classes will work their way up through the grades in the subsequent years. We were also aiming to maintain current level of existing programs and ensure that student safety was a top priority. We were looking to expand early intervention supports and services so that we can start to shift from a reactive mode of responding to student needs and being more proactive, and then continuing to support our most valuable resource, our human resources, which is over 300 employees across the district. So the FY21 budget development process had some very clear challenges right from the start. As Vinny explained on a previous slide, we have unbudgeted needs in FY20, which is leading automatically to a 2.3% increase over the FY20 budget. I think the simplest way to think about it is that those student needs that cause us to need excess funds in the FY20 year don't go away just because it's a new fiscal year. We also have contractual obligations that required a 4.9% increase over the FY20 budget. This includes health insurance, lane changes, cost of living adjustments, and step increases for our staff. Again, the increasing pre-K to 1 enrollment, requiring additional staff. We're noticing over the past several years increasing developmental, social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students, and some of these needs are requiring specialized services and placements. We have aging facilities and increasing routine maintenance costs, and I think the same story in most school districts. We have more needs and investment proposals than we're able to support. So it's really about prioritizing. So when we give you this high-level tentative budget overview, we're looking at the operating budget here. And so what this shows you is what was approved in FY20, or 19 rather, in the first column. And then what was approved in FY20, what's proposed in FY21, and then what is the percent change from FY20 compared to the proposal in FY21. As you work your way down the chart, we're looking at the operating expenses. These are our expenditures. We then look at our offsets, our revenues, and that together gives us our net budget increase. So you'll notice that the operating expenses is higher than the net operating, because that's the gross minus the revenue to get to the net. And so it's a projected, at the tentative reading, a 13% increase over the previous approved budget. But remember what we're saying, that we have a known 2.3% increase due to the current deficit that was communicated on July 18th. And so this chart shows you those same numbers, except we've added a column here that shows you what it would look like if we had an adequate budget in FY20, meaning that all of those needs that were clearly projected on July 18th were budgeted for. And that would have looked like a 19.15% increase over the approved FY19. And then our proposal would then change to be an 8.82% gross, less revenues and offsets. The net increase for the operating budget would be an 8.62%. And that includes our required investments and our new investment proposals. So the idea here is trying to illustrate that although that percent increase over the FY20 approved seems very high, it's not as high over what the actual reality is that we're living every day.
So this is how you develop the assessment to the towns. On our first line here, we have our gross operating expenses. For FY21, we are around 39.3 million. This is a difference of approximately 4.3 million, or 12.48% on the operating increase. From here, you offset your gross operating expenses with your expense offsets. These items are programs where we generate revenue from, preschool tuition or special needs tuition. We are estimating that this will increase approximately 32%. This is mainly due to the addition of the third pre-K classroom. We generate tuition revenues, so this is mainly where the difference comes from. You remove your expense offsets from the total operating expense, and from there you get an increase of approximately 3.9 million. After that, you remove your operating funding sources, mainly from the state. This is Chapter 70 and state transportation, the biggest categories. We are estimating an increase of approximately $45,000 or 1%. From here, you remove our excess and deficiency, which for FY21 is approximately $217,000. Once you remove these three categories from our gross operating expenses, you're left with an increase of approximately $3.7 million, or roughly 13%, and this is what we assess both the towns of Hamilton and Wenham at. So the 32.9 million, you can see, gets divided up over the 64.05% to Hamilton and roughly 36.14% to Wenham. This is a debt shift of approximately 0.19% from the previous year. Listed out here is our FY21 capital improvement projects. We will be asking for a debt exclusion of approximately $958,000. In here, the main categories are safety, infrastructure, and improvements across the district. In addition to that, we have an elementary school feasibility study, replacement of classroom furniture, redo the sidewalks at the middle school, and to update the athletic campus improvement project, as well as some network infrastructure technology around the district. So when you combine your operating assessment with your debt service assessment summary here, we have 4 current projects. The last one there is what we just talked about, the $958,000 that we will be going out for. We are estimating a interest payment of approximately $15,000 for FY21. Along with our capital projects, we have our last year's Winthrop Sprinkler project, the Bucher Boiler and Winthrop Boiler projects from, I believe, 2 years ago, and our Cutler Roof and Summer projects from 2013. All these debt service add up to approximately $413,000, and it is assessed the same way our operating assessment is, 63.86% to Hamilton and 36.14% to Wenham.
So in summary, we take a look here again at the FY19 approved compared to the FY20 approved, and then what is the FY20 reality that we're living each day. Then we add in what's proposed for FY21. Again, this includes the new investment proposals that are recommended by the leadership team. And what we would be looking at is an 8.62% increase over what the FY20 reality is. However, since we don't get to go back and redo time, what we have to deal with is the percent change from the FY20 approved to the FY21 proposed. Again, this is just the tentative budget. We've been already in works with the subcommittee to talk about what can the community really handle, knowing that a 13% increase over FY20 approved is not a sustainable ask.
So our next steps for the FY21 budget development process is on Tuesday, February 4th. We have a school committee capital finance planning subcommittee meeting. After that, if everyone wants to stay engaged, well, before that, on January 29th, we'll have our joint FY21 budget meeting with the town FinComs and Board of Selectmen. And then on February 12th, we have our second public hearing in the same room here at 6:30, and then finally the town meeting on April 4th.
And the joint meeting will also happen in this room for those who'd like to attend. So that concludes our presentation. Happy to hear any public comments.
So at this point, we invite everyone, open up the floor, excuse me, to speak everyone can speak for 3 minutes, and we ask that you let everyone else speak before you speak again. And we'd love to hear any comments any of you might have. Seeing as there's no large rush to the podium right now, what we'll do is we'll keep the floor open for an additional 7 minutes as the public hearing for school choice is scheduled to begin at 7. So we'll keep the floor open just in case someone pops in until that point. was just gonna say, we've got a minute left. Anyone come up with any questions on the budget? We'll give it another minute, and then we'll open the public hearing on school choice. All right, at this point, I'd like to officially open the public hearing on school choice. Do we have a brief overview of that, the numbers, or basically what we're currently doing?
So annually, the school committee reviews the school choice options for our students. And so this year, we are looking at really reaching our max at the middle school. So based on the initial review of numbers, we're not recommending that we pursue school choice for grades 6 through 8 for 2021 school year. The target class size is 138 students per grade. That allows for 23 students in each of the 6 classes, and then that still leaves space for move-ins and or siblings, of course. If there's already a sibling who has choiced in, then younger siblings automatically choice in that fashion. So that gives us just a tiny little bit of wiggle room before we meet our max class size of 24, 25 in the middle school grades. And then we will have space at the high school in grades 9 and 10 next year. And then, of course, if there are juniors and seniors, there's special consideration in collaboration with the high school leadership team. They review class sizes and programs to determine whether or not there can be special considerations.
So just to clarify, we will be voting to approve school choice in the middle schools. We're just not going to be actively seeking more candidates.
Right. We don't have an abundance of vacant seats at the middle school level, but of course siblings would still be able to choice in if they have an older sibling who's already in, and then in grades 9 and 10 at the high school.
Can I ask so if we're not actively seeking, will we be what dollar amount would we be losing, not taking in the school choice for middle school?
So right now we receive, I believe it's $5,500 from each choice student in. The idea is to fill our seats without exceeding our school committee policy for recommended class size. And we usually have about 4 to 6 move-ins at the middle school and high school level each year. So we want to give ourselves a little bit of flexibility as well.
So we're still allowing the students that are already within our district to come back.
Absolutely, yes.
We're just not
Accepting
inviting anyone else in, so it's zero. We'll be losing $0. We just won't be taking any more students in.
Are we a little bit low on our middle school as per our policy, or are we right at our policy for middle school for 6th, 7th, and 8th next year?
So the policy from 2009 has the middle school class size of about 25 to 28. And my understanding is that a few years ago, when school choice was started, they had a meeting with the superintendent and assistant superintendent, high school principal, middle school principal to discuss the process. And at that time, they decided to use 24 students as the target per class. And in the middle school case, we have 6 classes. So for 1920, they then changed the target to 23 students per class, again, allowing for students to move in and allowing space for siblings. So you don't want to reach your max class size by choosing students in and then not have space for those siblings or students who move in and this is their home district. That's my understanding.
Stacy, just so you have the right number, it's 5,000 per choice.
Okay, thank you.
Historically, how many students do we lose between 5th and 6th grade? Is there any data on that? I know it varies from year to year.
In terms of choicing out?
Yes.
I don't. It's like a series of unfortunate events here. I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't know what this is doing.
All right, at this point, I'd want to open up the floor to any comments. Again, I ask that everyone be allowed to speak first before you speak again, and to please keep your comments within 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Craig Genualdo. I'm the high school athletic director at Hamilton Wenham. I live in Amesbury, Massachusetts, and my 9th grade son choiced into the high school this year. When I came to the district, he was in 2nd grade, and I had some funny conversations with the former administration about the things I'd do if my son could come to this district. It's all I ever wanted for him. Last year, he was a part of the lottery system, was deferred, found out, I think, in early June, it was pretty late, that he got in, and I think I danced around for about 10 minutes. I knew it was the right choice. The first day he showed up for his iPad, everything went wrong. I was pretending not to be there like any parent, and I was kind of peeking around the corner, not wanting him to know that I was there. And the staff treated him like gold, like he had been in the district his entire life. Solved the problem, all that stuff. Had a good first quarter. Like, I think some freshmen struggled quite a bit in the second quarter, and with the help of the unbelievable teachers at the school, kind of pulled himself out with the help that they gave him. It validated every reason why we wanted him to come here. He has currently a 5th grade brother that we would love nothing more for. I appreciate what you said about the younger siblings. Our hope is that he comes here next year. Amesbury starts middle school in 5th grade. He couldn't come here this year, but we've already had those discussions. I guess something maybe you could address, not tonight, but in the future is, I think the state law is that once you're in the high school, if another conglomerate of school committee members decides to stop school choice, I know that I think once kids are in high school, they can finish their high school careers. What I don't know that the rule states, and I would just be seeking clarification, is if a student is in middle school, we don't have the same principals, so they're different schools. What would happen for 6th, 7th graders if some other configuration of the school committee decided to end school choice? Thank you for this opportunity. You have no idea what it means. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a question per the remote. So if we're not participating in school,
That's why I clarified. She just misspoke. We are participating. We're just not
Seeking new
seeking new
students.
students.
okay. So just thank you for the clarification because the question was asked.
Yep.
just leave the floor open for another 2 minutes if no one has.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So no we're not actively seeking middle school students, just what, ninth grade, did I hear?
9th and 10th grade.
So they can only choice in if they're in ninth and 10th grade?
Yeah, new students.
New students, that's what I mean, yeah, new students.
All
Unless they're
currently en-
siblings.
Right, unless they're siblings, and then all currently enrolled students, of course, would continue through.
So that's where there's an opportunity, like the numbers, we have room,
Yeah.
ninth and 10th.
So the reason why I asked the question earlier about the drop-off between 5th and 6th grade is that a few years ago, when a local school opened up their middle school, we did have a significant amount of boys that left between 5th and 6th grade. So I don't know if that trend is continuing. So currently, we have 144 students that will be in the 6th grade in the fall. And I just want to know if, what, we're saying we're losing a few, but we don't know how many. So I don't know if there's going to be so historically, we should be able to see if there is, what the trend is for
Yep.
boys going to this local school instead of our middle school. And that might help. I know we're saying no to 6th graders coming in, but I'd hate, to lose, let's say 10, and then we have 4 spots
Well,
available.
we're not saying no, right? So what the school
Yes,
committee
yes.
does, is we just vote whether or not we're accepting school choice, right? That's it. At that point, it's the administration sees where there are available slots. So if we lose people to attrition, that would then make a spot available. How that would work in advertising, I don't know. That's their problem. But, so if all of a sudden everyone was starts going to,
Down the road.
Yeah. they would know, they would see that there are seats available, and it would behoove us to actually bring them in because they actually do bring money with them.
Much like Craig was explaining for his son, who was deferred, but then found out later on that there was a spot available.
That's great, thank you for clarifying that.
I've been at this a
It
few
would
times.
also be interesting to note, because I do know of girls and boys in both schools who've come back to our school too. They spent 1 year, sometimes 2, and then they come back to our school.
Therein lies the rub.
Which I know has happened, so it would be interesting to know, kind of it's hard to figure all this out, and, I mean, we've had studies done, we've even said, okay, our enrollment's declining, but then we have this huge kindergarten classes and 1st grade, and were you saying pre-K too now? And so people are moving in for our school district. It's not necessarily declining. We've had to hire more people. So it's very interesting because people are coming to, even as, this wasn't on record, but last night Michelle Horgan even mentioned, they're moving to our towns for our school district.
Yeah, and I think, often in communities similar to Hamilton and Wenham, what happens is housing turns over. So you'll see that students are typically with us all the way up through high school, and then families move out once all their students, or shortly after their students have graduated, and then we have a new surge of younger families, which
yeah.
seems to be the pattern of what's happening right now.
Yes, I can attest to that in a certain neighborhood, which is a pretty large neighborhood. That's kind of what's been happening. But I wanted to go back real fast because when you mentioned about the lower number of the 23,
Yeah.
actually the school committee, or maybe David knew, but I never was made aware of that they had decided to lower that. So that's why I was wondering about our policy. It just seemed a little bit low when I was doing the numbers. I did not know that they had talked about lowering that number.
I'm not sure if it would be covered in past meeting minutes, maybe.
It wasn't at a meeting.
No.
It was more-
because something like that, you have to figure that has to be made at a building level at some point. Right now, we're looking at a capital budget, capital expense, getting new furniture in, right? How many seats does a room legitimately have? And when you have crumbling furniture, your numbers shrink, and so there's something to be like, all right, well, our rooms can't handle the 26 that we used to be able to. Who knows, once you get new furniture in there, that the numbers might be able to go up.
right?
That is actually a comment that the middle school principal and I were talking about, that larger class sizes would likely require additional furniture because as things have been, exceeding beyond their useful life, we're not necessarily replacing them with the exact same thing that was there.
Any other comments? Usually this is the one. Usually this is the public hearing that gets everyone going, and I love to hear because we usually get a lot of support. So, happy to have you.
My name is Amy Greaves, and I'm actually new to the district. We actually do school choice, so I was here to listen in on your perspective and thoughts on how it all works. And I just want to say that I'm thrilled with the opportunity to be here. My children are thriving, and we're just happy for the opportunity, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
What grades are your students in?
6th and 8th.
Great.
So, yes, a boy in 6th grade and an 8th grade girl. So it's been a wonderful transition for us, and we really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Amy, can you tell me your last name just so I can get it?
Greaves, Greaves.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So I forgot, annually, I usually tell the story that, I graduated from Hamilton Wenham in '92, and one of my best friends to this day was a choice student from Salem, my buddy Lucas. Lives over in Ipswich now, but we won't hold that against him. But yeah, so I would have never met him if it wasn't.
We're actually choosing from Gloucester at the moment. Thanks. Thanks. Yep.
Welcome.
All right, if that's it, then we can move on, because we don't need to keep this open. All right, moving on. Normally, I would have stuck this here, but I wasn't paying attention. So, Tom.
Yep.
Get the floor, bud. So,
So tonight, I just have a pretty brief update on some of the happenings around the high school. So this week has been midterm exam week, which is kind of a great look at one of the ways that our school is still very much in the past when it comes to education. It's like 2 hours, you sit down, you grind it out, you study a lot. And I've had discussions with some teachers about whether or not it is a good thing, and a lot of teachers don't like it. They don't appreciate the format. But at the same time, I think it's a fair point that would the school be doing a disservice to its students if it didn't have this format of assessment when it's so prevalent at the college level. And so I think you kind of do have to strike a balance and accept the fact that once you're in college, you will have to sit down and take tests for 2 hours at a time. And so it's something that you really have to prepare for in high school, even if it's not the most fruitful learning experience. In addition to the midterm exams, there is a winter concert scheduled for February 6th. And on February 12th, Credit for Life Fair is taking place for all juniors at the high school. That's sort of a field trip that the entire junior class goes on, sponsored by the Institution for Savings, where you kind of learn about budgeting, investment, some just kind of financial life skills that are really important. And it's a great way for kids at the school to sort of learn some of those interesting skills while also getting a nice change of pace halfway through the year. I remember it last year. It was a good experience. In addition, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard visit will be taking place pretty soon, which is a all-day event for the sophomores where the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard comes to our school and does various stations, I guess you could say, ranging from an explanation of nuclear submarines to a demonstration of the cameras they use to do intricate repairs, the intricacies of parking a boat, all sorts of really interesting things. It's really engaging. It's an all-day field trip that I remember very well, in-school field trip, I guess you could say. And it's a great way to get kids interested in STEM and to see some applications of what they're learning, whether it's biology or chemistry or just physics or anything really, just basic math. You see it in action, dealing with the geometries of parking a boat or working on a repair. And then finally, DECA States are coming up in February. So our district competition was very successful. We had 94 students qualify for states, which every year has been increasing, and that's a new high. So that's a great representation for our school, and hopefully a good chunk of those students will be attending. I think it's February 27th. It's a Thursday, Friday, and then you come home Saturday. And it's a great experience. I've done it since sophomore year, and I'm really excited to do it again this year. So that's all I have for tonight. If you guys have any questions about anything, I'd be happy to answer, but if not, thank you.
Actually had a proctor some midterm test today, and actually it came to as a surprise too, which really stunk. But I just, for 2 hours, I was sitting there just thinking about how antiquated a process it is, so I'm with you, man.
Yeah. It's tough, though, because it's so antiquated, but it is still, it exists at the higher levels, so,
I mean, I get it.
yeah, it's tough.
So may I ask a question? So the 2-hour midterms, is it sit down and regurgitate what you've learned, or is there skills application, or is it just
Well-
basically rote memorization and you spit it out?
It's class to class. So for something like, I know AP Psych is a course that's almost completely memorization based, just because it's the nature of the exam. I think it's almost all multiple choice in the 100 plus multiple choice. That's just pure like studying and memorization. Whereas AP Lit and like history, you're more often presented with a document that you've never seen before, and the assessment there is application of skills. So like analytical skills, you often have to analyze the validity of a source. So it's ironic, actually. History is one of those classes where you're not doing as much pure memorization. The same, I think, goes for STEM classes, just because it's not like you have to memorize facts as much as you have to be able to apply them. That's more true for chemistry and physics and less true for biology, but it really does vary course to course.
Nice, great, thanks, well said.
Yeah.
Nice.
And thanks for sharing the Credit for Life that's coming up. I think this is probably the 3rd year, and it is so impactful for students, and it's probably one of the most relevant and hands-on for our students that are juniors, and it really is a great example of putting theory into action in real life, so it's great. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, no problem.
Thomas, did you get a chance to stop by Humanities at all and see some of their more creative midterms?
I did. So this year, and I haven't seen the finished project, but I know that, again, they went with kind of a majority class project, and they're doing a mural. So the back of the room, if you don't know, the humanities room used to be like the home ec room. So there's a lot of this, like, there's a big wall around the back of the room that's kind of just blank. And so for their project this year, they did a full mural of that wall that represents the various themes and works of literature and historical events that they learn about. And it's pretty impressive. And then there's a small subset of the class that broke off and did a giant board game as well. I haven't seen that, but I saw the mural and it was really good. So they're doing cool stuff there.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they were both really fantastic. And the mural also has like QR codes embedded into it so that you can just go with your phone and scan it and read the reports that they wrote to go with it.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Nice.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, moving on to new business. At this point, can I get a motion to vote to accept school choice for fiscal year '21?
I move that the Hamilton Wyndham Regional School Committee vote to approve school choice for 9th through 12th grade and 6th through 12th, not actively seeking 6th through 8th candidates.
A second.
I just want to amend the motion to not actually, to remove the not actively seeking part from the motion, just in case things change between now and then. So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Not you.
Not me. Sorry.
Okay, I'll second the amendment.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the amendment?
Did you vote?
But we also need a vote on the first one.
Yep. So I just wanted, so the amendment passed. I'm sorry. I should probably go roll call, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Michelle.
So, thanks, Jean. Ty? Michelle?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey?
Michelle, you still with us?
She might be having trouble. Do you want me to walk up and ask her?
Yes.
You want to go? You want me to go? Bailey, you still with us?
Still
Thank
connected.
you, Tom.
Michelle, are you there?
Okay, so unfortunately, we're just gonna have to move on. Hopefully, we can
So that's
reconnect.
an approval of 6-0 then, of
Yeah.
who's in attendance.
Yes, because yes. So any discussion on the original?
Yes, but you are delayed by about a minute, so I can't hear you. The
Sorry,
only way I
Michelle.
can Talk is a minute delay.
That's interesting.
Space station.
So are you a yes or no, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And now on the original motion to approve school choice for FY '21. Ty?
Pass for a second.
Michelle?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Michelle Bailey?
Give her a minute.
Let's give her a minute, right?
Will do. Will do.
She's on the space station.
This should be easier in today's day and age.
Technology upgrades.
Michelle is a yes.
Thank
Michelle.
you.
David Polito's a yes. Ty? Yes. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your patience, Michelle. So, excellent. Next up on the agenda is the interim superintendent's formative evaluation. There's no L in there.
So I'll go to the podium to present this, but I'm passing a packet that includes the presentation and then one additional supporting document while I head over.
Is this additional?
Okay, so you have a couple of things in your packet. You have my goals that were linked into the agenda, and you've had those since they were approved back in September. Also, in the packet, you have there's some supporting documents there as well. Begins on page 2, I believe. And then what I'm just passing out is a copy of the presentation so you can jot any notes, and one supporting document that has some evidence on there that I'll explain as we go through. So for tonight's formative evaluation conversation, the objective is to provide the school committee with a progress update and evidence of effectiveness regarding my 2019-2020 goals, and to also articulate some emerging entry findings. And I say emerging entry because my entry process hasn't been quite as expected, which I'm sure you all are well aware of. Back in July, my entry plan vision was to have this 4-phase process that would include pre-entry, which this started back in May, right after, well, really before I was actually officially hired, reviewing documents. And then in June, I had a chance to sneak into some of the schools and do some school visits with our principals, and then began meeting with the leadership team as well as folks became available. Whoops. Too fast. The second phase was to really listen, learn, and observe. And this phase, it looks like it has an end date, but this really goes on pretty much indefinitely. I'm listening every day, learning something new every day, observing something new every day, and constantly taking in more information as I try to understand more deeply what the strengths are of our district and also what the opportunities are. This really serves here as my summary or my initial analysis of my emerging findings, although it's not nearly as detailed or evidence-based as I would have liked, and I'll explain that in just a few moments. And then, you know, throughout the process, given the place that the district was in when I arrived, we've been really synthesizing, building, and strategic planning all along. And tonight you'll actually get a chance to possibly hear from some of our leadership team members if they'd like to share, but take action on our strategic blueprint that we've been working on over the past several months. So this was the initial plan. Looks really nice and neat and clean and has start and end dates. That's not necessarily what happened. As you know, we had several vacancies that needed to be filled in the very initial months, and so that had derailed some of the one-on-one conversations and meetings I would have liked to have during those initial months, but many still did occur. So there were 5 general focus areas of my entry plan. The first was student achievement, and this was really to focus on the organizational efforts and assess the resource alignment in order to ensure that all students have equitable access and opportunity to reach their full potential. Pretty much the mission of any public school. And so my plan was to really study that and understand what are we doing well and where can we improve. The second was really to focus on community engagement, connecting with various stakeholders across our communities, building trust, trying to establish credibility so that when it comes time to ask for resources, folks know who I am and what my intentions are in terms of being a good steward of your tax dollars. The third focus was really to help the governance team, the school committee, work closely with the leadership team in order to be most effective and ensure that our schools are being run well and to build that trusting relationship. The fourth focus area was really around examining the budget development process and then beginning. You know, it kind of happens, you're reviewing the budget process while also then developing the next year's budget process. This entry posed an additional challenge, if you will, of managing the budget deficit. And so that became part of this focus as well, is deeply understanding how we got there and how we can avoid that moving forward. And then lastly, it's really looking at educational priorities and next steps. This is not something that a superintendent does alone. This is something that is done with the leadership team and lots of teacher voice and stakeholder engagement. And again, you're going to hear more about that when we talk about the strategic blueprint. So our initial plan was to do a superintendent entry survey and a superintendent search survey combined. You can see here that I crossed out the entry part, just giving the timing of things, although we had questions, and I shared some potential questions with the school committee, kind of went in a different timeline and brought on MASC to do that survey, and it really ended up focusing more primarily on the search aspect and not so much the questions I would be asking in a traditional entry. With that being said, the data was still made publicly available, and it actually affirmed many of my emerging findings, and I found it to be helpful. I've identified a few emerging themes here and some general patterns that I've noticed as strengths in the district so far. First being that each town has this very unique identity and a strong history and passion and pride about their individual community, yet a lot of newcomers to town and or outsiders are more likely to view Hamilton-Wenham as one community, and often they don't realize that we're 2 separate communities. In the time that I've been here, I've seen lots of opportunities where we come together as like 2 towns, 1 community, but that there's still some separation between the 2 communities and some deep passions about that unique identity. One of the things that is very clear is that the school district is viewed as an asset. People tell us and tell you and tell other members of the community that they move here because of the schools. We spoke about that a little earlier when we were talking about school choice. We also have teaching and support staff that are highly respected. That came out in the superintendent search survey, but it also has come out in every single conversation that I have. Our teachers and our staff are really top notch, and our community recognizes that and sees that as a strength. And this also includes our leadership, of course. We have a very strong enacted curriculum across the district, and we're working on focusing on how do we use the curriculum as a tool to support the whole child, so not just looking at academic excellence, but looking at all those other things like social, emotional, behavioral, mental health. And that's something that this district has a keen eye on and is making some significant progress towards implementing that for all kids. One of the other things that I think is a wonderful strength of this community is that we're a high-performing district. Our data looks really good. That's why a lot of families want to come to our district, but our leadership team and our staff aren't just sitting back and saying, we're good enough. They are very dedicated to that continuous improvement and engaged in trying to craft authentic learning opportunities for the students that are going to prepare them for the future, not only so that they have success today, but that they're able to respond to the rapidly changing world around us. And I mean, this is pretty observable if you go into any one of our schools. The majority of our students come to school really ready to learn, and that's a huge asset for us. In terms of opportunities, I'll highlight a few again. I think that we're really ready to build on our strong core teaching and those learning and instructional practices that most of our teachers are engaged in every day, while also making sure that we're meeting the needs of our students right here in their home schools in that least restrictive, most appropriate environment. And we really need to focus on the multi-tiered support system. This is something that's on everybody's radar. We just need a really good system for analyzing that and then enacting some improvements. And there's many things already in motion, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a few minutes. We also need to address some of the deficits that we have in terms of student programming, and that will require us to expand some of our existing programming and to build some additional student support models that will allow us to have stronger, more effective behavioral interventions, and of course looking at our overall operations in the Student Services Department. We've talked a bit about that through the budget process. Another opportunity that I'm seeing that's before us is to really enhance and document our curriculum. I talked about that enacted curriculum as a strength. It's very clear in the NEASC report that a next step for us is to making sure that we have it in writing and it's easily accessible by all staff in the community. So that will also include looking at what resources we're using in terms of using effective evidence-based instructional practices, looking at universal design for learning. Inclusive practices is something that the district's been working on. We have some new curricula in math and in reading and writing, so making sure that our staff are getting the type of professional development and support that they need in order to implement those things effectively. We also have the opportunity to expand and align our student non-academic supports. You see this in our leadership team's new investment proposals in the FY21 budget. They are right to be thinking about the mental health and behavioral health of our students and the social emotional supports that they need to realize their full potential, and also thinking about how do we support the whole family unit. We know, we have our students for a certain window of time, but then they go home and there's sometimes additional resources that families need to be connected to, and that really supports the second leadership team new investment proposal for that licensed social worker to be able to work with families across the district. And then lastly, these aren't the only opportunities, but just the ones that come to the top of my mind, is continuing to build those collaborative relationships with all of our stakeholders in order to maximize shared problem solving, in order to achieve both financial stability, but also high levels of community support as we strive to continuously improve. So that's kind of emerging themes. Again, I would like this to be much more quantitative. This is more of a qualitative analysis with plurals of anecdotes and some of the feedback from the superintendent search survey. So when we talk about the improvement process, it starts with the self-assessment, which I did back in the fall, and then analyzing that self-assessment data to really narrow in on what areas of the rubric would I focus on this year in order to ensure that Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District students and staff are getting the very best out of my leadership. Then I developed some key benchmarks, which you have in your packet and you approved back in September, and action items. And now we're at the point of the mid-cycle review. So we're talking about what progress do we have to date, what evidence has been collected, and I'm also really looking forward to your feedback so that I can ensure that I continue to grow and improve each day. So my first goal was a district improvement goal. I have 2 district improvement goals, 1 professional practice goal, and then 1 student goal. This was to really have an effective entry and to set a clear direction upon my arrival. Although I said that the entry process didn't go quite the way as planned, there were still a lot of things that happened that allowed us to set a strong direction for the school district. And I would say those one-on-one meetings with various stakeholders, both inside and outside of the district, is clear evidence of efforts towards this goal, as well as really working to stabilize the district by recruiting, promoting internally, and then hiring skilled professionals in order to fill the 11 critical vacancies we had across the central office, and including one of our new principals. And then I would think, most importantly, really working to instill confidence in staff and building a professional, honest, collaborative relationship with both stakeholders inside the district, but also outside the district, because we know that it really takes a whole community to support a school system. One of the items that's linked onto the cover page, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but there's a link that says evidence of effectiveness. And I've played with this a bunch of different ways, like how do you capture all the things you do toward accomplishing your goals. One idea I had was creating this spreadsheet that I handed out as a supplemental support. And basically what it does, if I could show it up here real quick. I took all 4 of my goals this year and all 8 of the standards that were identified within the rubric, or the indicators within each standard in the rubric, and I started capturing some evidence of effectiveness. So what were some of the key things that I did, some links to maybe agenda or communications that were sent out that supplements that progress towards that goal. And so I'm not going to go through all of these here, but in each box when I'm highlighting 3 or 4 things, it comes directly from this tool that you have electronic access to, and you have it there in print as well. So you can see here's goal 1 and evidence, goal 2 evidence, goal 3 and 4, and then here are the 8 indicators that were identified from that self-assessment that I did back in the fall. So just a quick glimpse at some examples of the evidence for goal 1, effective entry and direction setting. Goal number 2 was about maintaining momentum during the transition, and this was really defined by the interim superintendent demonstrating the ability to keep the district moving forward. One of the things I learned on my initial visit when I came and met with Dr. Harvey, the outgoing superintendent, and members of the leadership team, was that there was a lot of energy and passion around the strategic blueprint. They had spent, I think, all of the previous year and maybe even some time before really working collaboratively with one another and engaging our teachers in understanding what they were thinking with the plan to make a plan. But then also really engaged in Change School. Several of our district leaders had already taken the course, and there was another cohort that was energized and ready to take that course in the summer. I was also really pleasantly surprised to learn that we had over 80 teachers already committed to doing summer voluntary book studies on 4 different titles that aligned to the direction of the strategic blueprint and the work of Change School. So I felt like that was a tall order to make sure that I didn't come in and upset the apple cart, and instead really listen to the leadership team and listen to the staff and make sure that we were maintaining that momentum and that they weren't feeling like they had to wait another year to have a permanent superintendent before they could move forward with some of their strategic actions. And so you had firsthand experience of a lot of this with the 3 workshops that the leadership team and I crafted for you so that you could actively engage in some of the ways we're thinking about what learning is and some of the ways we're thinking about the future of the Hamilton-Wenham School District. It was fun to also include staff, students, and some community members in that work. Other examples that I think support this goal are the trainings that we did with Dorothy Presser over the summer, really looking at ourselves as a team and trying to identify what are the strengths that each of us on the school committee bring to the governance of the school district, and how do we lean into our strengths and also have compassion and empathy for some of the areas that might not be strengths in some of our colleagues, so that we could be a higher functioning, more productive school committee. We also added the annotated agenda, and that seems to have really helped us stay on track and on time so that our meetings aren't running too long and we can be as alert and attentive in making the best possible decisions for our kids. And then the third example I'll highlight here, again, there's plenty more within the evidence document that you have, is just managing the fiscal systems. It was really unique to have to be thinking deeply about the budget deficit really from day one, and how we were going to communicate that in a way that would maintain morale and ensure that students had what they need in order to effectively reach the needs of our students, while also beginning to think about what does the leadership team want in their budget development process, what skills could I bring from my experience as a superintendent in another district, and how do we kind of make the process our own in a way that everyone could own it. And I think that was really clearly displayed in the leadership team school committee workshops we had on January 14th and 15th. I know for myself, I was having several moments of pride and just really appreciating the work of the team and feeling like that we're really coming together as a cohesive unit. And then thirdly is looking at our evaluation processes. And so one of the things that can often happen when you talk about evaluation is it can become a compliance exercise or something that we do because someone else is telling us we have to. I believe deeply that if we're going to invest that amount of time in an evaluation process, it should really drive improvement, and it should be something that energizes all of us. I try myself to model how I use my goals to continually reflect and improve. We also looked at setting up monthly check-in meetings with each of the principals and the directors so that we're visiting the schools, we're addressing sort of hot button issues. Each conversation looks a little different at each school and with each director, but then also coming back to and saying, so how's it going? How are your goals going? How are we developing those goals in a way that they're meaningful and not just something we put on the shelf until the end of the year? And I'm looking forward to our mid-year check-ins in the month of February. Part of the settlement of the collective bargaining agreement for our custodians was then trying to develop an evaluation process that mirrored that of our professional staff. With our new director of facilities and our assistant superintendent of finance and operations, they worked really collaboratively with the custodians to unpack sort of what worked with the previous evaluation and what didn't, what needed to be added so it felt meaningful. We wanted there to be a 5-step cycle, just like the superintendent has, just like all the leadership team has, just like all the teachers have. So they're engaging in a self-assessment so that they can identify really strategic goals for themselves and then be evaluated and be given feedback and have formative conversations along the way so that it's not a surprise at the end of the year if somebody needs improvement or if they're exceeding expectations. Those should be ongoing conversations. And this mirrors, like I said, the teachers' process. Our principals are doing a really great job managing that and making sure they're hitting all the deadlines and making sure that staff have feedback on time, but also in a really meaningful way. They've even taken the evaluation process and been really innovative in the way that they're asking teachers to collect evidence. So again, it's not a compliance exercise, but it's highly engaging and they're collaborating with colleagues. The next phase is to work with our central office staff and looking at the administrative assistant rubric. I think what we're going to find when we meet next week is that it's lacking, and probably some folks haven't seen it in a couple of years just from some of the one-on-one conversations that I've had. But again, we want them to have a 5-step cycle. We want them to be treated, elevate sort of that process to a more professional level so it's meaningful and they're using it as a tool to improve. The third goal is a professional practice goal. This is to participate in the new superintendent induction program. Although this is my 4th year as a superintendent and I had 2 years as an assistant superintendent prior, being new to Massachusetts as a superintendent, I felt it was really important to establish that social network and engage in this process all year long. some evidence of effectiveness around that has been my attendance at the content days. There's 8 total. We have a few more to go. They're all day long. I find them to be extremely useful. I get to connect with other superintendents around the state. We get to troubleshoot. We get to talk about our goals. We get to talk about our strategic plans. And then I also have on-site coaching once, sometimes twice a month. And one of the things I'm trying to do is model that mindset of continuous growth by inviting my coach to come into the buildings, to check in with the principals with me. She then gives me feedback on how well I'm doing coaching the principals, but it also allows staff to see that, you know, I too have a coach, and I make a point to say, this is my coach, Joan Conley. She's here visiting the school and giving me feedback, and that's been really helpful for me, because one of the things I really want to make sure I'm doing, and the principals will have a chance to give me feedback in February on this, is really supporting them, and that when it's time for the check-in meeting, they're looking forward to it, and it's useful, and it's not just something we're doing because I sent them a calendar invite. And then the third piece I'll share for this goal is just the application of relevant readings, activities, and discussions with the leadership team and the school committee. So that Compass activity that we did, we also did with the leadership team. That was something that I brought back from my new superintendent induction program. And then my fourth goal, probably should be my first goal, it's our student improvement goal. This goal was really around analyzing and assessing the effectiveness of the district's multi-tiered support system. So for the non-educators, this is how are we meeting the needs of all students? When we talk about multi-tiered support, it's usually represented in a triangle. And so you think of the biggest slice of the triangle being the base. And these are the interventions and supports that all kids get. You don't need an IEP, you don't need a 504, you don't need a behavior plan or a health plan. All students get this because we're differentiating our instruction and trying to meet their needs in the least restrictive place, which would be right in their classroom with their peers. The second level is that supplemental support. So some kids get that. They get all of Tier 1, they get some of Tier 2, and this can look like an additional session of like reading or writing or math with a specialized instructor who's using a targeted intervention to try to help the student close an achievement gap or fill a skill gap that they might have, or even possibly an engagement gap. And then at the very tippy top, it's the smallest part of the pyramid, is your most intensive supports, and this should be a few students. So this is students who have IEPs, behavior intervention plans, 504s, other really kind of formalized accommodations, and it can also look like additional supports. And so this became a priority for me when I started looking at some of our literacy data and also looking at some of our student placements and the number of students who are being classified with, special education classifications, and wanting to deeply understand what's going on, and really asking myself 2 questions. Who are we serving really well, and who could we be serving better? And that's an ongoing process. So some of the things I'm relying on is lots of data. So there's the data you can count. That's the numbers, the really quantitative stuff, the things you can see through observations and interactions in the schools, and the things you hear in conversations, in classrooms, and throughout the community. One of the other things that I think supports this is that addition of the 3rd preschool classroom. We all know, you've heard me say this a bunch of times, the earlier we intervene, the better return on investment we get, the more successful our students are in their academic years, but also throughout life. And also the 7th kindergarten class. This was something that was unbudgeted. Both of these things were unbudgeted, but I believed that it was absolutely essential for us to work at some of those preventative measures by implementing these resources for our kids and our principals. I've also been doing a lot of in-district program visits and out-of-district program visits. Vinny and I had a chance to go visit Hopeful Journeys and Landmark. We chose those 2 specifically because that's where we have the highest number of students placing out of district, and we asked a lot of questions about what they're doing, why they're doing it, how our students' needs are being met. We actually had a chance to observe some of our students in their programs, and I found it to be extremely insightful for kind of mapping out what are some pathways we have moving forward. And then the fourth example I would give for this goal is just, there's a lot of things happening right now, and I'm not doing them all by myself, or even, I haven't even initiated all of them. It really is a full team effort. One of the things we did was apply for the Essex Learning Community Grant. We're really excited about that. That's going to help us specifically look at our multi-tiered support system and get some ideas for how we can do the work we're doing even better. We also, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, one of her goals was to form this literacy data team. It involves elementary principals and teachers from each school, and they're looking closely at a whole matrix of data that we have available, and they're starting to think really deeply about, how do we make sure we solve the right problem? What's actually going on here? How can we close gaps for our students? We're doing some case study analysis, looking at some of our students who are on IEPs and or are heading towards that direction, and trying to deeply understand what is the work that has happened from the time we received them in the district up to the current date. And we're working with our legal counsel to plan some case conferences. And what this will do is engage our each building leadership team in looking at some specific examples of student cases in a really confidential way, so that we can then kind of unpack and understand what things went well and where we could possibly improve for the future. So that's my brief overview. Tried to fit a lot into a short window of time. Of course, like I said, you have access to all this online and can go digging deeper. If you want more examples, I'm happy to add more as well.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
I have to say, it's very impressive, Julie, because I know you've been doing a lot. I mean, when you first started, 12 new hires for 14 positions. I mean, that's a lot of work right there. And then you talked a lot about, this was a lot. So it's things that at least I personally did not know had been going on, besides, getting information for school committee meetings. But this is impressive, so thank you.
Thank you.
Very impressive, thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, and I've told you sort of offline a few times too, that I really originally didn't have you in my short list for interim superintendent, mainly for the reason that you've proven is I don't think you're viewing the job as an interim. You're coming in and you're actually leading the district. You're not just maintaining, you're actually trying to move forward, and I'm really impressed with everything. Entering on July 1 into that deficit was something that wasn't anticipated, and you handled it.
That's one thing I didn't mention, yes, and handling the deficit as well.
And I knew coming in, I had spoken with both of you and Vinny about sort of how difficult a year we were anticipating having, but it just sort of has amplified, and I just wanted to let you know that how thoroughly impressed and happy I am with the work you've been doing thus far. And thank you for this. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you've done. Quick question, given all the challenges that you have faced as the interim superintendent, and knowing that based on surveys and things that have happened in the district, that our teachers are our greatest asset, how would you assess your ability to be on the ground level and be at ground zero for these teachers? I mean, do you feel like you have a good sense of, do you feel you have a good sense of what's happening in the classroom, what the teachers are going through? I know it's a tough balance because as a leader, you want to make sure that the building leaders are controlling, but I also think it's important as a superintendent that you understand what's happening in the pulse, especially the teachers, because again, those are our greatest assets. And so just what's your, do you feel that, because you do have a lot of plates spinning, And there's a lot of meetings that you are in. So do you have time to really get a pulse of what's happening at the ground level and with the teachers and our paras?
So I think I would say yes, and not as much as I would have hoped. Right now, the times I get in the building are really those scheduled monthly check-ins, just because there is so much going on. In my past 3 years, and including when I was an assistant superintendent, I always had a yearly goal of 100 school visits in 180 days. And it became really clear to me right from the very beginning that that wasn't going to necessarily be possible. One of the things I've tried to do to get in the schools more is schedule just like building days. Like today, I was at the high school and middle school until 1:30, 2 o'clock. You know, I got there at like 9:45, and I just stayed there that whole time. So that's helpful for me. Yesterday, I was able to go to Winthrop and then go right to Cutler, and I'm just sort of blocking. I haven't seen my email all day long today, or, you know, I think I caught up from yesterday, but I think I could be more visible. I think that's really important for a superintendent and, frankly, all central office administrators to be really visible, because oftentimes we're making really strategic decisions, and it's easy to quickly become, it's very easy to become detached from what's happening in the classroom, and I think that's dangerous. So, you know, my hope for the next superintendent would be that the district stabilized and that they would be able to enter into the district and focus more on the classroom level and really supporting the principals in a way that even better than I've been able to in this interim role.
May I continue to address your question, but to continue your point? You may not feel like you're in the schools enough, but several teachers, including district maintenance technicians, have all approached me to say you're highly engaged, highly approachable. They appreciate you. They think you're brilliant. So they've all voted that asking that you stay on. So
Thank you.
I wanted to share that with you publicly.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So I think you're doing a great job. I'm curious to know what you anticipate for the remainder of the year. Like, what do you anticipate to be significant challenges? And then also, how can the school committee help set you up for success, or at least continue the progress that you've made so far?
From now till the end of the year, I think continuing to have efficient meetings that are really focused on students, continuing to engage with the leadership team in a positive way, I think that goes a long way, and I've heard really good things from the leadership team about that work that you've all been doing this year, so I would say absolutely continue that on. And I've really valued the feedback that folks have given me in real time. You know, when I make a mistake, or when I could have said something differently or explained something more clearly, people often give me that feedback, whether it's in a phone call or in an email, and I value that. I think it's really important, and I wouldn't want time to go on and folks being like, gosh, things are really, you know, not going the way we had hoped. I would want to continue to have that really open, honest dialogue, because at the end of the day, I mean, David mentioned that I'm not treating it like an interim. What I realize, and I think I said this in my interview, is like, I don't know how to, I have like one speed, so I don't really know how to just like not think about how can we improve, how can we grow, what's gonna happen next. I do catch myself often saying, you know, next year, and then I have to say, well, when the new superintendent comes, because I don't want it to be assumed that I think that's a given, because I certainly don't. I do think there's a lot of work to do here. There's a lot of strengths, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And it's exciting because you have a very, very capable, high-functioning leadership team, and they're able to lead the district in a really positive way. And so I think continuing to support them, following their lead. I think they asked in one of our early workshops that you give teachers permission to try new things. When we look at districts that are doing the kind of work we aspire towards here in Hamilton-Wenham, that's a bold statement right on their website. It's like a quote from their school committee chair that says, we give you permission to be innovative, to be creative, to do whatever it takes to serve our students really well, or some version of that. And I think those messages are really important for our teachers to hear, because teachers are pleasers. They want to meet your expectations. They want to meet their principals' expectations and that of the community. So as much as, you know, we can continue to engage with them and give them that information, I think the whole organization will be better off. If that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
second in case Michelle has a comment?
Do you want to ask her?
Is that?
Should we ask her in case she can't hear? Ms. Bailey, do you have any questions or comments for Dr. Kuchenberger? Bouncing off a satellite. Going around the planet.
No, she does not.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. David, do we want to make a, I know it's not on the agenda, to make a motion to allow Julie to,
Not at this time.
for Julie to apply to the position?
So I saw that in your email. I don't know that we need to do that. Because when we, I mean, I guess there's no harm.
At the beginning, we had said we were going to decide what, since we're going to do a full search, whether we are going to allow it or not,
No.
based on,
We
thought
decided
we said
that
we
last
allowed it.
spring, that we
What?
would allow it.
okay, I
Because
just
we didn't
wanted to
want
verify.
curtail our authority as a school committee. We didn't, in
I
the
just
event
wanted
we
to
had
make
a
sure.
great
Okay.
interim, we didn't want to limit our ability to hire that, right?
Yeah, I think it's also even mentioned in the search committee guidelines.
Yeah.
Of the interim.
I have a comment about the applying.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle. Can you hear us? Yeah, but why would there be a delay on a phone?
So in the charge for the screening committee, there is a line that says that Julie will be interviewed by them, and that they would consider whether or not to put her forward.
So she's named in the,
No, he's, in the
Interim
charge, it says that specifically. The charge for the superintendent search.
So go back to what you were saying, Michelle. You were saying, or sorry, Stacy, I did that last night. What?
I'm Stacy.
Yeah, I know, sorry.
I have blonde hair, she's got dark hair.
I was thinking of what Michelle was saying, and I was looking at you. So you were saying, just like 3 minutes ago, that you wanted to put a motion forward to have the interim superintendent be.
He's not named, but it just says that the interim superintendent, so Julie.
Right, but I think there's a distinction though between being interviewed and then being. I want to make sure that we're not making a distinction or false distinction. So so in the charge, the interim superintendent will be interviewed by the committee. And then
Yes.
you were saying something
I
similar?
forgot that was in the
Okay.
charge, that's why I mentioned that.
All right.
I'm just curious as to how that reads in the charge, though.
Can I ask for clarification about the search committee? We're only interviewing the ones they push forward?
Correct. Yes, correct.
And are we part of that search committee?
No. That's why we're voting in a search committee, and then they will bring forward their finalists, and then we interview the finalists.
Well, they're recommending finalists.
They're
At
recommending.
the end of the day, we're actually in charge of hiring whomever we feel, but the common consensus is that we would go with the recommendations, and
It has to be one of the ones, the
it doesn't
the
have to
search
be.
committee.
There's nothing binding us to that.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we weren't limiting, because that's our charge as a school committee, we decide, right?
Right.
Yes.
But,
That's one of our three
again,
roles.
the common consensus is they're gonna go through all the sort of
Applicants.
process and put forward their recommendation, and then we would go through
I
barring.
can read the charge if you want.
Thanks, Michelle. We'll get that in a minute. Yeah, I'll give her thumbs up. Maybe she could see it.
can, I don't know why there's a delay on the speakerphone. I mean, if we have a more instantaneous response through a cell phone and it still can be heard, we should just do that. There's nothing special about a speakerphone.
There shouldn't be that long of a delay.
I know, I don't know why.
David, you need to call, don't call our cell because it's so unstable. Call our house phone.
Oh, you can hear the ring.
Yeah, you can hear it.
Delayed.
So Wenham needs a cell tower too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you go right in front of Wenham Town Hall, the phone will cut out.
Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
really bad service. And I would call the old town manager over at Wenham, and I'd talk to him right in front.
Look it up in the original, right?
Why don't we do the budget forecast and then move on, and then, since the next part would be the search committee anyways. That's a suggestion.
Okay, so it was under responsibilities, and it's number 3. It says, one of the responsibilities is to review those candidates' resumes and application materials recommended for interview by the consultant, and evaluate this information based on the established selection criteria. The current interim superintendent shall be interviewed as part of the process.
And it's right here, I do have that.
I'm okay with that wording.
And I'm okay with that.
Oh.
Thank you, Michelle.
I may have lost you on TV now, so I'll see if I can get you back.
Of course you did. All right, so what I think we need to do now, which is tied in to the current conversation, is go over the screening committee letters of interest and select the candidates. Stacy, do you have, I don't have Michelle's home number. Can you call her from your cell phone?
Yep.
Mine?
Nope.
Isn't the
You don't
budget
wanna do the
forecast first, next on the agenda?
What's that?
The budget forecast is next on the agenda.
So we have people in the audience, so I actually
Yep.
want to, oh, that's right, I crossed that out. So, move that up.
Okay.
Do I need a vote to just move around the order or no?
No.
Since we,
See.
that way we could send you guys home.
Hi, I'm going to put you on speakerphone because this way you're at our table and you can hear us, okay? But we got to turn off the other conference call because it was making a lot of noise. So hold,
We gotta work on that technology.
yeah, so I'm going to put you on speakerphone now, okay, so you can hear us. Okay, can you hear us, Michelle?
I can hear you.
So, how about me, Michelle?
I can hear you.
All right. So we're going to do now, next up on the agenda was supposed to be the budget forecast, but we're actually going to move, since we have people in the audience, we're going to move up the superintendent search, reviewing the letters of interest, and then we also wanted to, well, we'll do that for now. Excuse me.
Okay. So I know that 2 people who were being considered had let me know that they couldn't come to the meeting tonight.
Yep.
So Kristen Crockett and Catherine Harrison. So
Both who I actually saw earlier on the way in.
yeah, they both had this meeting scheduled. So I'm excited to hear that some candidates are in the audience. So that's great. So at the end of the last meeting, I left, but I've watched it, and it didn't sound like we had determined how to select the people. So do we want to decide how we want to pick them? And would you want to start with the staff people, or would you want to start with the community people?
I think the process should be the same for both. So I don't think it really matters. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But I think, personally, my interpretation of how we've been viewing creating this committee and being sort of as transparent and not interjecting as a committee, as a school committee, as much as possible, I would think that we want to take the names in each category and sort of place them in the hat, per se, and then pull them out. I am safe in, I am comfortable in the list of qualified candidates here, in that all would serve, our district very well in representing the community at large on this committee. Does anyone else have any different opinions?
I feel like we should be picking the candidates and not picking out of a hat, personally. So we should be able to each pick names and then go from there.
Do you have a strong reason why you feel that way?
I agree with Stacy, and my reason why is I feel like we already have the two candidates. We know that Ben, the Bucher principal, is going to be on, and we know that Peggy from the central office is going to be on. And we kind of know what their skill sets are. But then when you go to look at the parents and the community people, we're trying to have people who kind of know the pace of things and pay attention and are involved. And I think by just pulling out of a hat, we're not being strategic about picking people who best represent the community.
I kind of disagree about that, because by volunteering and actually taking the time to do this, all have proven that they're actually actively involved in the community and care about the outcome. My concern is that by choosing, debating and choosing each candidate, we could be sort of somehow influencing the actual committee.
I don't think we're influencing at all the committee. It's just looking at the qualifications based on their letter of interest, is in my opinion. Drawing out of a hat, I just don't agree with at all. I feel pretty strongly about.
But I think our biases towards certain people will lead us to.
I know, but pulling out of a hat is the same thing as saying, let's flip a coin on the budget.
No, it's not.
I've been giving this some thought, and, I guess I also think while each of the candidates is qualified, we see that they bring different qualifications, and so pulling out of a hat is discounting the differing all valuable qualifications.
I think so too.
Otherwise, all we needed was people's names. And no resumes, no letters of interest, just names. And I can understand why there could be an appearance of favoritism, but it's also, I think, I hope that the people will see that we've done a good amount of thinking to work through that.
So should someone make a motion for one way or the other, and then someone second
I can make
it?
a motion. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee vote to choose the candidates by
Debate.
debate.
Second.
Second.
Third.
So, well, just discussion. So, the problem I have two problems with this. One is really the thought process, or my thought process into going in all of this, and I've said it time and time again, was to try to pull the school committee out of the initial process as much as possible. And my second part is I know about half of the people on here. And in knowing half of the people on here, that means I don't know the other half of the people, so I couldn't
Take it off that.
realistically give them an equal shot and say that I'm doing my best in picking the best candidate.
I mean, I guess, this process aside, if that's an issue, one way to resolve that would be for you to withhold voting. And I don't know if that's actually a possibility, but
So if I was to withhold voting because I know half of the people on here, theoretically, the majority of the board would have to do the same.
apply that standard across the board. I don't think it would be fair to David then.
I can't hear you, Jean, sorry.
I would say that if we go down the road of recusing ourselves because we know people, then we have to apply that standard
Yeah.
to everybody.
And I guess part of it is, in some ways, I think it's okay to know people, right? That the idea that we're starting with a blank slate is not completely unrealistic.
Yeah, I just think we asked for letters of interest, and they're giving us their background, and that's how we're looking at these people to see who's qualified. And I think we need to take that into consideration, and we can each make our decisions of who we want for each area.
Well, let's vote on the motion, unless there's any more discussion.
I don't know, I am absolutely torn, because I have read through all the letters of interest, I've looked at all their qualifications, and I would be happy with anyone on here. I think they're all immensely qualified. I also understand, and so I also understand the need to make sure that all the different aspects of our community are represented. Yeah, I've been thinking about this.
Yeah, this,
Sorry.
okay. Peter says he's torn.
All right,
So why don't we take it to a vote?
so,
Yeah.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I cannot.
Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you. Is it possible to go back to the speakerphone? Because at least you can hear me there.
oh, we can,
Can you hear now?
I can.
Okay.
all right, so we're gonna have to still go for a roll call vote.
We're going to do a roll call vote, Michelle,
On the motion?
on the
Yes.
motion.
So this motion is to, if this motion passes, we are picking the names
So we're going through
Through debate.
candidate by candidate and
and not
choosing.
randomly out of a,
Yes.
which, I don't know.
We are,
Drawing randomly,
no, we are going through candidate by candidate and choosing. It is
no, I was
not
just
random.
weighing the pros and cons of both. And that by randomly drawing them.
So we don't
It
need to
doesn't
roll
affect their
call on
lives.
this motion. We can just raise our hand and who's for it and who's against it.
We have to roll call
Can't, 'cause
because
she's not, she can't, Michelle can't. How can you
Okay.
know that whether or not she raised
Okay,
her hand or not?
that's true.
Jean? I know.
I can say yes.
Michelle Horgan.
Have you,
Jean said yes.
Yes.
Michelle Horgan, yes.
Ty,
This is for selection?
this is to select.
Yes.
Ty, yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Peter,
No.
Michelle Bailey,
yes.
and I am a no. So the ayes have it. Now the next thing we need to do is decide how we're going to go about this because there are, I think if we move through the community members first, we can actually get that done quickly.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay, can we talk about the community members then?
Middle school numbers,
David,
then the elementary school.
1 second, Michelle.
just a second, Michelle.
So, oh, yeah, so I was thinking about if we did the community members. Oh, right. So, Michelle, you were just suggesting the community members?
Right.
I agree.
So- Have I been recognized to speak?
Yes.
Yes, Michelle.
So, for community members, there is Gary Cheeseman and Catherine Harrison. And at the last meeting, I had mentioned to you that I was certain I could convince you on a third candidate being a community member, and that is Bill Olson. Bill Olson happens to also be a parent, but where we have people who, Gary Cheeseman and Catherine Harrison are both from Wenham and are active in our local government, I feel that Bill Olson, who is also from Hamilton and active in our local government, should be considered to be the third community candidate, and then that would just fill out those positions.
And we're looking to fill 2.
We're looking to fill 3 positions.
I agree with Michelle Bailey.
I do too. So I will make a motion to, make a motion and then we can discuss it? I make a motion that we put forward Gary Cheeseman, Catherine Harrison, and Bill Olson as community representatives.
Second.
Jean? I'm sorry. Any further discussion?
Any further discussion, Michelle?
Nope.
I actually have discussion.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
So at last week's meeting, was it last week? I haven't even lost count. I really didn't, stated then that I really don't like the idea of people filling multiple spots. I understand Michelle's reasoning, but, you know, a parent is a parent and can't take off the parent hat. And I think in the name of sort of equity as, you know, a community member who does not have a vested interest, that being a child in the school system, you know, that's an important representation of our community. And I'll just leave it at that.
May I ask to clarify what we mean by community? Like, what categories are we, how are we dividing this up? Like,
My thought process was, or my understanding of the process is that the community members would be representatives of the community who do not have, interests within any of the other subcategories. That being a principal, a teacher, or a parent.
Or an elected official.
But, okay, so an argument, just a counterpoint, I guess, you're saying once you're a parent, you're always a parent, you wear a hat. Catherine Harrison was a parent, and she's no longer a parent of a child in the district, but she was one.
Right, but
So-
she doesn't have an active child in the
But-
district.
If you said always a parent, you're always wearing your parent hat. I'm just saying you're
And we could say that about Gary Cheeseman, too, I mean, anybody can be, so.
I don't know,
I
just,
see what you're trying to say, but I disagree.
okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
Should we do a roll call?
So I guess I'm trying to understand what happens to all the other names on this list? Are they?
We're not
Now-
there yet. We're
Yeah,
only at the
now
community
They
piece.
would be,
Yeah,
We're not talking
looking-
about parents right now, or?
No,
Right.
we're still community members.
We're just
community
at
members with-
community members.
But you say community members without students in the system?
that was my understanding of the original intent.
But doesn't Mr. Olson, he has a student in 5th and 7th grade, right?
That's exactly my point.
Yep.
So would you prefer we
However,
fill the
if we
spot?
don't pick Mr. Olson to be the community representative, then we have no one from Hamilton.
I'll say this, we all, everybody everybody plays multiple roles, right? Because everybody has has more than one identity, right? We're all taxpayers, we're all residents, we're all elected officials, we're all parents. So I think the original intent for the community was always to be, or at least what I understand it to be, was a non-parent living in either of the two communities, right?
Wouldn't a teacher also be a parent at some point? Would you let them switch hats?
This is what I'm saying. It's like I don't know if you can sort of I don't know if it's so easy to sort of.
Well, it is, because it's either you do or you don't, right? It's if you're a teacher, you're not, the thought process is we have teachers, and we have parents, and we have community members. Now, we understand that there are teachers within our community that are parents and live within the district. So while they qualify for all three roles, the fact that they're a teacher actually would supersede the other two, right? Because to put them then in a community role, say there were multiple candidates, right? And we had a teacher who was a parent, who was also a community member, and you put them into a community role. Then, one of the community members who no longer have a student in the district and is not a teacher is now not in that role, and you have someone who actually fits 3 different hats in that role, which in some cases would be the best case scenario. But when it was my understanding that when we were putting this list together, that they would be singular, they would, serve singular roles and singular functions.
So if we follow that same logic, then when you go to appoint the people to be a parent at each level, you would have to eliminate all the people who have children at multiple levels.
So, no, you wouldn't. Because if they were parents, they
But
would,
it's a parent at each level.
right.
So if you are a parent at middle school level, but you also have a child at elementary, you're representing both levels
No.
because of who you are.
That's
In
actually,
the same way, to me,
that's backwards, Michelle, because what would happen is, what the argument would be is if there was no parent who had a student in a high school, but you had multiple elementary school parents, so you chose 2 of them, then you would not be representing the high school equitably.
But here, we're not eliminating people because we don't have 3 choices for community members. We only have 2.
So,
So we're trying to find a way to pick someone who is very involved in the community, who can be part representative of a community member from Hamilton.
And I think,
Our only other community member was also a teacher.
in no discussion before sitting at the table right now, did we ever distinguish Wenham versus Hamilton? Right? My problem, my argument, and the same thing I had said last week, is that I don't like the idea of changing what we're looking for in the roles in the middle of the process.
There was never voiced by the committee that community members could not have children. That was never voiced. It was voiced by you at the last meeting, but it was never voiced and decided upon by the committee as far as I recall.
So maybe we should bring it to a vote of what everybody thinks, you know, of the motion of the 3 people, yes or no, and go from there.
May I ask another question? So Michelle, you said we're looking for 3, we only have 2, so no one's being excluded?
If we follow David's logic that you can only be, that your role as a parent supersedes your role as a community member, then we would only have 2 candidates, which means we would have to reduce the number of people serving on the screening committee because nobody's being excluded by including Bill Olson as a community member. We either have the 2, Gary Cheeseman and Catherine Harrison, and we leave 1 empty, or we allow Bill Olson to serve as a community member. Or you can reconsider and allow Sharon Sorial to serve as a community member, but
She's a teacher.
So there's also other members of the Hamilton community within the parent group. So why, just choosing Bill Olson to fit that?
you could do that. You could decide that now, instead of having 2 community members and 4 parents, you're going to, or 3 community members and 4 parents, you're going to have 2 community members and 5 parents.
So why don't we vote on the original motion by roll call, and then if it, and if it doesn't pass, we change it.
So the motion would be to change it. Right, the motion is to move Bill Olson into the community.
Is 1, 2, and 10.
So,
So you'd have to amend the motion.
but that's what I'm saying, the motion is to change. Any other discussion?
So what are we voting on? We're voting on
So this
the
is to
original?
choose Mr. Cheeseman, Ms. Harrison, and Mr. Olson as community representatives.
Can I make a comment or not?
Sure.
Bill Olson, so appreciate the conversation.
Why
My-
don't look up?
So, I think, I've been an elected official in Hamilton for over 5 years. Whether I'm a parent, I'm still an elected official. Whether I'm an elected official, I'm still a parent. So I think it's a benefit and an advantage to the committee. I've been on a lot of search committees, steering committees. I think the goal is is not to exclude anybody, but as many people as you can, with as much background as you can together to build consensus and pick the right candidate. So, I feel that from my background, my position, my experience, whether a community or parent, I'm going to bring a huge benefit to the committee, and I'm willing to serve. So if you have any questions based on the debate.
I know you would, and
Right.
it's not personal. It's
Right.
unfortunately, you're.
But the letter that went out never excluded anything from any section. So if that was your intent, the letter was written incorrectly. So that I would go back to procedure and say if that was your procedure, you did not communicate to the community that you were excluded from certain areas. So that would be my point as well too. That you would have to go back and try the procedure over again because you didn't give that instruction to the community.
Noted. I think, but would we be having this conversation if a third person from the community at large just put their name in, you know? Because if, you could have just blown up our entire process. And that's just my, I tend to field the grumblings here of, well, now you're misrepresented because you have more parents on the board. And you
David,
don't
can
have
we,
many.
can we move on to vote, because we have a lot going on tonight, please?
Gene?
So I just want to clarify the motion. So the motion is
To
to
vote for-
seat Gary, Catherine, and
Bill,
Bill
yep.
on the steering committee.
Yeah.
No,
as community
yes, for
members.
the community members.
As community members
As community,
on the search committee.
all right. I was going to say yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Ty?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey?
Michelle? Your vote, yes or no on that?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm a no. That's 6-1. So Gary, Catherine, and Bill are our community members. Excuse me. Now, looking at we have 3 roles at the school level, at the teacher level, I'm sorry, at the parent level, 1 representing each school. Now, there are multiple candidates on here with children in multiple schools. How do we want to go about voting for this? Does everybody with a middle school student, is everyone with a middle school student eligible for the middle school? And then those who were not chosen, then also eligible for elementary and high school as it may exist?
So the person who has the high school, there's only one person.
It's only Tyson?
I guess we need to decide if we want that one person to serve as the high school, or, I'm assuming. But then there's one person who only has a child at the middle school. And then there's 4 people who have children at elementary. And then there's like this bulk in the middle that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who are in both middle school and elementary school. So it's like those people get like 2 chances to be on. So I don't know if we wanted to say, okay, so Tyson's on because he's at the high school level. Julianne is on because she's at the middle school level. And then pick from the 4 from the elementary, and then pick one person that represents 2 levels.
Again, I don't like the fact that we're even considering changing the idea. The original idea was that it was going to be 1 representative from each school.
It wasn't 1 per school, it was 1 per level.
1 per level, that's what, okay.
So that proposal that I just stated would do that. And we did decide at the last meeting to pick 4 parents.
So that gives the extra parent. So we still pick 1 from each school, and then do we pick another person from middle school and the elementary? Or something else? I mean, there's only 1 person from the high school. Do we want to vote that person in from the high school?
Well, may I ask a question? I'm always looking towards the future. I mean, some of these parents have middle schoolers now in 8th grade who are about to be high schoolers, and there are 5th graders who are about to be middle schoolers.
We're doing the process now. They're not in the school, and that will be done before they're in school next year.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
To me, they're looking
another way
we're
of
6
approaching
months
this.
away.
So another way of approaching this is, by just sort of identifying what level their kids are at, sort of discounts their skill set and qualifications they may bring into a search committee, right? I mean, there are people here with, college administration experience. There are ones who, have special education, child and special education services. There's other kinds of things. And if we're gonna do this, I mean, honestly, if we're just gonna evaluate them based on how old their kids are, you might as well should have just done it by random selection,
That's,
honestly.
that's what I'm thinking, too.
That's,
We haven't discussed anybody's qualifications at all with
So
this.
should we then, should we do a roll call of who each person wants as their 4 candidates?
So it's like a ranked choice thing, each member.
Can I
has
just
4
say
names?
something about picking special education parents?
Go ahead, Michelle.
So, it's not legal for a parent to disclose the privacy of their own child with regards to their special education qualifications. Some people have chosen to do that, and that's fine. But just because you have people who have given that out, you don't know that those other candidates there don't have special education parents or children. So while I agree that there should be some representation there, you don't know who represents those groups because they may not have told you.
Right. So, but that wasn't necessarily the point, was including or excluding. I think the point was that the parents, by what they've submitted, have various skill sets to all be, that can all be considered, and we could argue ad nauseum about choosing this. So again, the fact that we've actually spent 20 minutes picking one person essentially does not make me like going through these people name by name and roll by roll anymore.
So we do a top 3. Everybody does a top 3, and then we see where we sort of suss out.
Top 3 or top 4, since we're picking 4?
Doesn't matter to me, really. but my question is, it seems like we have to pick Tyson because he's the only one at the high school level. Is that what we're deciding?
Yes, I actually think that's the only easy one we have.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee move forward Tyson Goodrich as a high school parent for the search committee.
Second.
Any discussion? Jean?
yes.
Michelle Horgan?
Yes.
Ty?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Peter?
No.
Michelle Bailey?
Michelle Bailey.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a 6-1 vote. All right, so are we thinking,
So should we pick a rank order middle school and then rank order elementary school? And
that's what I
then
was just gonna ask.
from the remaining pool, we could rank order the 4th person?
Yes. So do you want me to make a motion on that?
No,
Okay.
We need
I'm trying to figure it out in my head.
we need 3 more people? Is that,
Yeah.
3, so we need an elementary, we need a middle school, and then we decide on the 3rd person, because we already have the 4th being Tyson Goodrich, who's high school.
But we have some people who have one in elementary and middle.
No, it's who we can choose, that's my point.
let's reevaluate
Yeah.
my list then. Hold on.
I'm trying to think of a way to actually do this.
I would make a motion that Julianne Meyer Brown be the middle school representative. I mean, we have to be moving these things forward.
Second,
So,
Wait, so what's the process we're going through now? We're going through each individual name?
well,
'Cause
that's what
rank-
just
that's
got
not rank
thrown.
order.
Right. And this is why I didn't want to make a motion, so now we have to vote on the motion on the table. And that's putting Julia Myers-Brown as the middle school representative. Jean?
It wasn't second, though. Do I have to
It
second it?
was seconded.
I seconded.
Stacy seconded it. Did I start with myself?
I'm gonna,
Right.
I'm gonna, hold on.
I'd rather see us do a rank order.
I'm gonna move to amend the motion, or I'm gonna amend the motion to rank order the middle school population.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So did my motion fail, or is my
Oh, we
motion
have,
being
it's an
amended?
amended.
It
it's an
was amended.
Okay.
So, Michelle, so my motion is to, rather than going individual by individual, is to provide a list of whatever, 1 to 3 or three of your candidates.
Great.
Or I'm just saying 3, because that's just a
I
number
would,
popping in my head.
whatever, warmly recall my motion.
No. I don't think you need to, and Michelle, you weren't here. What I'm trying to do is actually figure out how to do this. If we do a ranked voting where.
Why don't we go to the elementary and decide who we
it's the
want
same-
the type?
It's the same thing.
Actually might end up splitting everybody.
Well, when Jean was being chosen, we had like quite a few people come, and we picked like our top 3, and then it was clear that even though, there was like one candidate here, one candidate there that had 1 or 2 votes, that it was clear who the top candidates were. And then we were able to sort of like narrow that down. And we did the same thing when we were trying to decide who to interview for superintendent. So that seems to be a process that works for us.
Okay, so we're gonna offer 3 names, 2 names? Four?
I guess 3 names, that's what you amended it to, right?
Yeah.
3 for the middle school?
Well, it's not going to be 3 for middle school because it's going to be 3 altogether. If
No,
that's
it
the way
was-
it is, it should have been 2 for middle school.
The motion, the amended motion on the table was a ranked voting for middle school.
No, he didn't say middle school.
I did, actually.
You did? Okay, I can't hear you over here.
So then everybody would name 3, top 2, right? That leaves 1 for the elementary set. Yes? Because we have 3 community members, we have a high school, that's 4. 5, 6 for the elementary, or middle school, and then 1 more for the elementary.
So we're doing
What?
I think anyone who doesn't get chosen for the middle school, who still has a representation in elementary school, should be up for consideration for elementary school as
I
well.
can't hear you, David.
I think anyone who does not get chosen for middle school, that represents both middle school and elementary, should be still in the running for elementary as well.
You mean like Julie Holbrook, who has a student in
Right.
elementary and middle. Patty McCullough, she has students in both elementary and middle.
I lost you. Hold
I honestly think we should just do this to see if there's any clear.
Okay, so let's get going. It's almost 9.
So
So are we on the roll call vote?
So we're ranking 3 people. Is that what you're saying for just middle
for
school?
just the middle school.
Why are we doing so many for middle school? Why
we're
not
doing-
2?
It would be the same, because that's what the motion on the table is.
But I understand that. Why did we pick 3?
Feel free to amend the motion.
I move to amend the motion to vote the top 2 middle school candidates from each school committee member.
Jean?
Come back to me, please.
Sure. Michelle Horgan.
Julian Meyer Brown and Kristen Crockett.
So we're voting on the amendment.
Oh. Yes.
Ty. It's like town meeting in here.
So you want 2 instead of 3?
Yeah.
Yes, for middle school, yes.
Yes.
So,
I mean, we're giving 2 names
Yeah.
rather than 3 names.
Yeah.
We're not saying that it'll
Correct.
definitely be 2.
Yes. Yes or no?
No.
Stacy.
Yes.
Michelle Bailey.
Michelle Bailey?
Yes.
So, I'm a yes.
All right. Irrelevant.
Jean, right.
I'll abstain.
Mr. Irrelevant, one abstention. All right, so now, the top 2 candidates from the middle school. Want to start this one?
I do not, because I had 3. I don't have 2. So that's why I want to pass.
I had 3 as well.
I'll look.
Michelle Horgan already said hers, but she can say it again.
Michelle.
Julian Meyer Brown and Kristen Crockett.
Ty.
Julie Holbrook and Patty McClough.
Peter.
Oh, definitely Kristen Crockett. And now I'm absolutely torn between 3 others.
Go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's go.
I should have picked out of a hat.
Yeah.
I won't be bullied.
At this point, honestly.
Patty McCullough.
Stacy.
Julianne Myers Brown and Kristen Crockett.
Michelle Bailey.
Michelle?
Julianne Meyer Brown and Kristen Crockett.
Jean.
Julia Myers Brown and Ann Krantz.
And I picked Julie Holbrook and Kristen Crockett. I have Kristen Crockett with 5.
Yes. Yes, that's what I have.
So,
Julianne was 4.
And then Julianne has 4, so those are the top 2 candidates.
What is the top 4?
The top 4 would be Kristen
Kristen.
Crockett, then Julianne Meyer Brown,
Then
and
Julie
then
Julie Holbrook.
Julie
and Patty
Holbrook,
McCullough.
and then Patty McCullough, and then
thank
Ann
you.
Krantz.
Okay, thank you.
So I move that, do you want me to make a motion to move those 2 forward?
Nope.
No, because we have the 2.
I can't hear you
Yeah, the
guys.
2 top vote getters then, who are Julie and Kristen.
Yep.
Okay. So we need one more.
No, because
So
we
the-
amended the motion to 2.
I know, but
So
we
now
need
we-
one more person, right? 'Cause
For
we
the
have set
elementary,
6.
yes.
Yeah, so we need to do elementary, so.
Do you have to vote to approve the middle school?
I think
So
we do
we
have to
need to
move.
vote to approve the middle school.
Right, so is,
So are we voting to say these 2 are the names for the middle
Yes.
school?
right, so actually, so the open motion on the floor from Michelle Bailey was putting Julia Myers Brown's name forward. That was amended twice.
I withdrew that so that we could do the rank order.
So,
So you
Okay.
need a motion to recommend these 2.
all right. So now we're back in reality.
Are we going to pick one middle school person and then pick one elementary school person and then pick another from all the remaining candidates?
That's what I thought we would do, because there are some that cover both, right? I like that.
So,
Well, Kristen Crockett got the most votes, and she's both middle school and elementary.
Yep.
And then Julie Meyer Brown is just middle school. She got the second most. I don't know if that changes your
I
perspective
mean,
on
I
that.
personally would want them both on and make that 2 members, but that's me.
I'm fine
And then vote
with
the
that.
elementary separately.
Yeah, I would support that.
All right, can we make a motion for
I
these
move
two,
that
please?
we put Julianne Meyer-Brown and Kristen Crockett forward on the screening committee for the superintendent.
A second.
Second.
Ty,
Okay.
Michelle,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Peter.
Just to be clear, these two names are going to be for middle school. Yes.
And then I'm a yes.
Okay.
That's it. All right. Top 2 for elementary, and we're picking the highest winner, right? So I just want to thank you guys for your patience. So I know I'm going crazy up here, so I can't even imagine what you guys are going through over there. All right, so same thing. We'll just do a roll call, top 2, elementary school.
I move that we put forward
So-
to your top,
Nope,
no?
nope. I say we just get the top 2, see who the votes,
Yeah.
who the highest vote getter is, and we just vote for them. Right, that's in keeping with what we did for middle school, without all
I
the
have
amendments.
Yes,
I
Michelle?
have a question. So when we select the elementary school person, are we picking just between the 4 that would only represent elementary, or do we get to include anybody who has an elementary school student?
So anybody with an elementary school student. 1, 2, 3,
I didn't hear the
4,
answer.
5, 6, 8.
Everybody with the elementary student.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So there's 8 to choose from.
Yep. So we're going to vote 2, and again, top person get it, unless there's any objection. No objections? Want to start?
Sure. Patty McCullough and Deirdre Pirati.
Who'd you pick? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Patty and Deirdre.
Okay.
Nicole Ireland and Deirdre Pirati.
Ty?
Yeah, I agree with that. Deirdre Parati and Nicole Ireland.
Peter?
Deirdre Pirati and Leah Gunter Sudemeister.
Stacy?
Come back to me in just a minute. I was writing something.
Sure.
Michelle Bailey?
Michelle Bailey.
I'm going to go with Deirdre and Julie Holbrook.
Stacy?
Deidre and Nicole Ireland.
And I have Julie Holbrook and Nicole Ireland. So I've got Deirdre Pirati with 6 votes. Nicole Ireland with 4, Julie Holbrook with 2, and Patty McCullough with 1.
I move that we put forward Deidre Pirati as elementary candidate for the screening committee, superintendent screening committee.
Second?
Ty? Michelle?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So,
Can I ask one more question, and please? I guess because I'm far away, you can't shoot me. So let's assume tomorrow we go back to these people and we notify them. Do we want to vote an alternate should one of these people now have changed their minds?
Sure.
no.
We could choose.
We don't
from
want to vote an
all-
alternate,
So I think the alternate should be the second
which
vote
is
getter, which is
Nicole
Nicole
Ireland.
Ireland.
Okay. I move that we put Nicole Ireland as an alternate
Second.
So Ty, Michelle,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Michelle?
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask a workies question. Am I now going to write to everybody
So
and say you are, yes, you're a candidate, you were selected, you're going to need to come to these meetings? And then to everybody who didn't, like, you know, we love all of you, and we'd love to see more of you kind of thing, but we just didn't see you in this role this time? Is that my role, or is that somebody else's role?
So, no, I actually just wanted to thank, I did want to thank everyone who expressed interest. As you just witnessed, it was a tough choice, narrowing it down because there were so many qualified candidates. But that's part of what makes this district so great. We already knew that. But again, just thank you. Moving on, we still need to choose our teachers.
So do you want Michelle to follow up with those people?
So, yes, I think that we should just keep everything the same as it's been going.
Thank you, Michelle.
Having Michelle
Thank you,
follow up.
Michelle.
Okay, so that's yes, I'm sending everybody a letter
Yes.
or email?
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. You know, where's
So-
the list of teachers?
Yeah,
The teachers are right here. So we have, right here.
Oh, in the front.
So Catherine Frost is the only person who was interested at the middle school level, so I would assume we're just going to select her.
Yep, go ahead. Make a motion. Need to make a motion? Are we doing them all separately, or?
Do you want to
Yeah.
do them all separately, David? Or do you want to?
we think we should do it just how we just did this one. Catherine Foss, the middle school, yeah, so just like Tyson, right? Make the motion for Catherine.
I move that we put Catherine Frost as the middle school representative for the superintendent screening committee.
Second.
Ty?
Yes.
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 Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Wholehearted, yes.
So, Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. I think we go elementary first, and we just pick the top candidate.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Well, sorry, is the principal already on the committee? Is that my
Principal's
understanding?
already chosen, central office is already chosen.
So we had a discussion last meeting that possibly, and we kind of agreed to it, but we could all change our mind. Do we, for the elementary representative, since Ben will be representing Wenham in a sense, or the same school, do we want, or do we just want to have the top candidate for elementary?
I don't think that factors in at all, but that's
I don't understand what you're saying.
And he has kids from both communities.
and
What?
Kathy.
There's kids from both communities at Bucher.
Okay.
I'm sorry, say that again, Dr.
There's,
Kuchenberg?
There's students
Kids
from both communities at all of our elementary schools.
Okay.
Who has it too?
Bucher has students from both Hamilton and Wenham, so Ben, as the principal of Bucher, doesn't only represent Wenham. He represents the whole, 2 towns, 1 community.
Oh, okay, understood, thank you.
so any other thoughts on that? I think we just vote top one personally,
Okay.
but again, I'm not saying anything. That's just what my thought.
I would agree with that.
All right then, Jean,
Mary Adamick.
Michelle,
Mary Adamick.
Ty,
Mary.
Peter,
Miss O'Shea.
Stacy,
Mary?
Michelle,
Mary Adamick.
and I'm Kathy O'Shea. So Mary, can someone make a motion for Mary Adamick?
I move that we put forward Mary Adamick to be on the superintendent screening committee.
Second.
Ty,
Yes.
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 Michelle?
Michelle,
Michelle?
and I'm a yes. Okay, same thing at the high school. So we've got 3 candidates. Jean, am I starting again?
We're just saying top one.
Just top one.
Top one.
Kristen?
Yep.
Borges?
Kristen Borges.
Ty?
Kristen.
Peter?
Kristen Borges.
Bill?
Cece?
Melville?
Yep. Michelle Bailey?
Michelle?
Bill Melville.
And I am Kristen Borges.
So
So
I move that we put forward Kristen Borges as our high school representative for the Superintendent Screening Committee.
Second.
Ty? Michelle?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Wholehearted, yes.
Yes.
Michelle Bailey?
Absolutely.
And I am a yes. All right, thank God we are finally through that. We're done now, right, Michelle?
We're what?
We're done with this screening committee, right?
We're done with that.
Oh,
Okay.
You've earned your money tonight, Michelle.
Yeah,
so,
great. Send a $0 check.
right.
Okay.
now we are, I've even lost my cover pages.
Do you want to stay on for the audit and all the other stuff?
So
or
where's
are
G?
you-
All right, now we're approving we're moving G up to approve the Hamilton Wenham School District Strategic Blueprint. I'm sorry, guys, if I knew that was gonna take that long, I would have moved
We're gonna
you
do the
way ahead of
strategic
that.
Blueprint.
So I was really hoping for picking the names out of the hat. You heard me.
Done an hour ago.
I would like to invite Principal Eric Tracy, Principal Jennifer Clifford, and Principal Carolyn Shediak to the podium to introduce our finalized draft of the strategic blueprint.
Thank you. This process began in the summer of 2018 with our leadership team, and by late fall of 2018, we realized the path was not where we wanted to go. Because we wanted to be rooted in shared beliefs and values across our district. We started over in January 2019, got some staff input, we were ready to go with a plan in May 2019. That plan spun off 4 book groups for our teachers to participate in the summertime, with 80 people participating in 4 different book groups run by leadership team members. The books were What School Could Be, School 2.0, Timeless Learning, and Deeper Learning, all connected to our initial strategic blueprint. In the fall, we introduced you all to the 4th Industrial Revolution, that crossover between the digital and the human side of education. We had 3 workshops. October, what is the future of learning? Was our opening question. In November, we talked about learning to learn and learning to relearn. And in December, making the vision a reality was our final workshop with you. This plan will serve as a foundation for our future. It's an opportunity to meet your goals and build mission, vision, and core values with many more members of our school community that will lead us into a successful future. These conversations have allowed us to bring teachers from many levels together by hosting workshops similar to the ones at the school committee level, teaching a course to explore learning with 30 of our teachers, and then also working with other schools at the Innovative Learning Conference and discussing and presenting about our process. We gathered lots of data from our teachers since the fall by using the same workshop method that we use with school committee, and now it's time to put that data to work. A more comprehensive budget decision can be made based on a strong set of beliefs and core values. Innovation can be supported throughout our district. Hiring decisions can be made based on what we believe as a school district. This plan can support the growth of our district while serving as a basis for the development of a foundation for our permanent superintendent. I appreciate the many hours of debate and conversation with my colleagues as we work to develop a process to review and enhance our future documents to help develop a strong foundation for the future success of all of our schools. We continue to stay the course with our original why, reimagining school to meet the needs of all learners. Thank you.
So in this document, you have this beautiful cover page that includes the 4 strategic objectives right up front. It outlines the theory of action, the portrait of the graduate, and then it gives you detailed strategic initiatives for each of the 4 objectives. Jen and Carolyn, did you want to add anything?
I just want to give an example that if we had a set of shared values and beliefs, that entire process that we just watched happen would be much easier, because we'd all be thinking about it from the same lens and thinking about what's important to our district, what do we value as a community, and really be able to make decisions in a shared way that are very transparent and less painful, maybe. That's just one example of what we're hoping this plan can give us. Budget decisions coming through this lens, really making decisions about the curriculum we're putting in front of children, the choices we're making about our schedules every day, really thinking deeply about what do we believe as a community for our schools and what do we want them to, what's the future we want to create as part of our schools.
So our recommendation tonight is that the school committee approve the strategic blueprint as presented in your packet, knowing that once we have your approval, the work is just going to continue. We have already had conversations about needing to form some type of guiding coalition that will include broader stakeholder involvement and engagement, and we have a subcommittee of the leadership team that's beginning to explore some options for that as soon as, I think, next week. We also know that each of these strategic objectives and many of the initiatives may require additional detailed action plans, and those would all be linked to this broad document that provides the overview for our community and our staff. And it's our shared belief that this will not just become something that we link to our website and forget about, but it'll be something that we live and breathe each and every day, constantly checking our decisions back to, does this align to our beliefs? Does it align to our mission? Does it align to that vision of the school district we're trying to create?
I know you said in 18 you sat down to really look at this, but how many years back do you think this has been in the making?
I think, I've been here a long time. I would say we were disruptors in 2018. Eric and I went through this experience of Change School together, and I'm so grateful that we did it together, because we were really questioning, what is it that we want our schools to be? What do we want for our students? And we came back, and one of the weeks in Change School, you kind of talk about your mission and vision, and it's almost a running joke in education, like, the mission and vision, it's somewhere on the website, let me go look it up. It's not something that we breathe and we live. And we were, at the time, looking and working with schools that really live their mission and vision, and it's in every decision they make. And it just became so clear of how much more powerful of an educational experience it is for all students to be able to have this experience from when they enter our schools and they're 5 years old all the way through till they graduate with really experiences that are aligned. And that's when we started working together with Craig Hovey to really look at, we focus so much. I realized I was working with elementary principals all the time, but my kids from Cutler don't go over to Bucher or Winthrop generally, but almost all of them go to the middle school and almost all of them go to the high school. So we really started working with our teachers to look at the family or the student experience throughout the entire district. And Bucher's joined in on that, and Winthrop's joined in on that with Carolyn joining the team. And we've really been trying to help teachers and help ourselves understand what is a student's experience, not just in our building, but in our entire district. So when we came back in August 2018, I feel like it was coming back and everything was uncomfortable because our thinking had really shifted. And at the time, Mike Harvey was really open to letting us kind of have those conversations. And when we started thinking about what is our mission and what is our vision, both of us started asking that question, well, what do you mean by that? Really trying to develop a strong shared understanding of language, that when I said what is learning, I had the same understanding of what I mean by that as what my colleagues mean by that, because there's so much educational, there's probably a ton of words in our current mission and vision that what I believe they mean, each of us has a different understanding of that. So if we could take a step back, really develop that shared understanding of language and what we value, and then build from there, we feel like, looking back, the work we started with transfer goals in probably 2010, there's lots of steps. Craig Hovey's done a great job putting that into that Sutori timeline, and as we started putting all these pieces together, we realized all of these pieces fit together, but really putting this strategic blueprint into place helps us accelerate and kind of tie it all together. So the hard conversation started in 2018, and the rest of the district jumped on board. And as Eric said, we've continued with book groups. We're currently teaching a course after school for about 30 teachers, and we're really getting deep into this thinking and this work about what do we want for our students and what is learning. Today we had faculty meetings across 4 buildings. High school had a different meeting agenda, but it will be an upcoming meeting for them. We just started talking about what are our core values. That's part of the NEASP accreditation process that the high school has to go to, but we don't want to just have core values that are for the regional high school. We want to have core values across the entire district. So those were really exciting meetings that we had today, and we're hoping that forming a guiding coalition in the future with community members, parents, students, faculty members, all different factions of our community will help us create this. It's almost like it's leadership, not leadership proof, but it's not leader driven. It's not personality driven. It's not dependent on who is our superintendent, who's on our school committee, who's a principal. It's about all of us as a community moving forward together. And one of our important steps is to make sure that we create processes to continually revise this and make sure it's an iterative process so it doesn't get stuck. We're not standing here 10 years from now looking backwards. We're always going to be able to have these conversations and revisit and question, do these values and beliefs still hold true for us?
Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
How does the district not being chosen as part of the Kaleidoscope Collective affect your vision with this moving forward?
Well, we've had that conversation. In the big scheme of things, it really doesn't, because we can do these things on our own. We have an extremely talented staff, extremely dedicated group of leadership team members who are very willing to dive into these things on their own. So that's been super helpful to really work within those groups and try some innovative things and design some opportunities within our schools so that we can continue to grow these, kind of innovative learning spaces and start to look about combining classes like our humanities class. So we want to look more deeply at that from pre-K to 12.
And we're not part of the Kaleidoscope Collective right now, but that's okay. There's still an opportunity to join in a year from now. But we're still involved in lots of different types of work that are happening. The MSAA, the Massachusetts School Administrators Association, was working with DESE and another group across the state to collect innovative practices. They've picked up a couple of our practices that we've started in the past 2 years, and they're part of a database that's being published tomorrow. That's just a way for districts across the state to share innovative practices. So I'm really proud and happy that they've picked up a couple of our ideas. So there's other opportunities statewide for us to continue this work. Yeah.
We've also presented outside of the district. We work fairly closely with Nipmuc Regional High School in the southern part of the state. They do an inspired learning conference. Jen and I were able to, and Craig Hovey were able to present there last year and talk about some of the things that we were talking about as a group. And we're going to continue to seek opportunities to get out and share that information, but also gather information from other schools. There are a lot of schools in our state now starting to turn that tide and looking at innovation and different ways to do things and ways to better integrate technology and take advantage of some of the high-speed digital learning opportunities that are going to become available to our kids and our teachers.
Great. Any other questions?
No, just a comment. I'm thrilled, especially when I'm looking at the portrait of a graduate overarching transfer goals. The very first line of my philosophy of education is I want my students to be free-thinking, curious, lifelong learners who respect themselves and others, who see multiple perspectives, have empathy, and have a desire and ability to change the world around them. And this hit all of those points. So as an educator, I'm thrilled to see this, because this is what I'm in this profession for.
Great.
Thank you.
We need a...
Thank you. I move that we, the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee, accept the approve the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District Strategic Blueprint 2020-2025 as presented.
Second.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Michelle?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey?
Michelle? Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all of your hard work.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so much, and thank you for being
guys.
here.
Yes, thank you for
Great
your
job.
patience.
We'll get this up on the website tomorrow.
Excellent. All right, moving on. Vinny has a FY20 budget forecast update for us. Exciting stuff. All good news, as usual.
Thank you, guys.
Buy them lunch.
Go ahead. You're good.
It says it's in use. Do you have to jump off for me to do it? Sorry. Okay, so tonight me and Julie put together our FY21 budget forecast as of December 31st. So as we've repeatedly said, on July 18th, we were notified of a preliminary budget forecast coming in at approximately $638,000 deficit. As we've said, this is mainly due to $503,000 in out-of-district special ed tuitions, the addition of a pre-K teacher, an addition of a kindergarten teacher, the addition of one, I have it right here, sorry, the addition of one TA salary in the pre-K classroom, the savings of approximately $61,000 from regular ed transportation, and the addition of 3 members, new staff members on our health insurance plan, which accumulates to approximately $54,000. Again, this was the budget presented to us in July. Since then, we gave you an update on October 16th. At that time, we were estimating a deficit of approximately $309,000, and you can see here on the DESI chart of accounts what it breaks down to. At that time, the main budget forecast drivers were due to a $433,000 out-of-district tuition. This was a decrease of approximately $70,000 from the previous forecast. In addition to that, we had special ed transportation forecast coming in at $170,000 over budget, but these were combined and offset with savings from staff additions, replacements, and rehiring. So as we previously stated, we implemented a hiring practice where teachers going out at the higher end of the scale were replaced with somebody at the lower/middle end of the scale. This resulted in savings of roughly $230,000. This $230,000 also includes the savings from administrative staff turnover and the reduction of an FTE in the business office. So since October, Julie, I, and the leadership team have been going over the FY20 budget, and right here I've broken out the main drivers between the October forecast and the December forecast. Just starting, this breaks out per the DESI's chart of accounts, so just starting at the top, we're seeing an additional deficit in our capital operations and maintenance accounts of roughly $26,000. This mainly has to do with custodian overtime increasing, our custodial supplies increasing, and the issues we had with the fire alarms at both this building and the middle school. Those accumulated to almost $17,000 in unforeseen expenses. In addition to that, we actually have seen an increase in savings from our instructional leadership line. This is mainly due to the fact that the IT department stepped up and deferred hiring their third IT technician. We had an internal promotion of one of the IT technicians, moved into the data entry spot, and Alan and the rest of his team all stepped up and is applying coverage to all 3 schools. And because of them, we are able to defer the hiring of the third IT technician. This has resulted in a savings of approximately $40,000. That, combined with other items, have accumulated up to a $56,000 savings in just the instructional leadership accounts alone. In addition to that, we also are seeing a increase of a deficit of approximately $133,000. This is from our other teaching services. This is due to the addition of another pre-K TA on our October 1st and July 1st forecast. We only had 1 TA. Those numbers have risen in the pre-K classroom, and we are now going to hire an additional pre-K TA to help service the students there. In addition, we've hired another special ed TA due to a one-on-one move-in. We have also increased our SLP position by 0.45 FTEs. In addition to that, the special ed department is reporting additional contracted services and additional costs related to home service tutoring. Separate from this, we did see a minor reduction in our transportation. The special ed department in October gave us an update of approximately a $107,000 deficit, but they updated that to $70,000. Therefore, we are seeing a slight decrease in the overall deficit of approximately $52,000. In addition to that, the special ed department did update their out-of-district tuition forecast. This was lowered by $60,000. However, we got an update from the state on our school choice out, and that is up $50,000. So they basically net each other out. So at the beginning of the year, we budgeted approximately $71,000 for students living in Hamilton but attending other public schools. This has almost doubled. We are now looking at approximately $155,000 cost annually for students leaving the district going to, say, Beverly or Ipswich who live in
So how
Hamilton.
many kids is that?
I can tell you in a
And
second.
was-
I'll look it up after.
And
I
was
have the
there
list.
any one that is like right on the Danvers line even? Because I know at one point they were saying the numbers, Jeff had said the numbers were off, that they were actually Danvers should be paying because they were right on the Danvers line
We
and they were
have
going.
we have an issue with Essex that we're working out, but I've included that in my number.
Okay.
So they are reporting somebody who they say belongs to us, but it's an Essex address, so.
Okay.
But I'm working that out, and I've included it in these
Okay.
numbers. In addition to that, the other main driver from our prior forecast, as I mentioned before, was health insurance. At the time, we had many open positions, and they've all, unfortunately, enrolled in our health insurance. So right now, we are looking at an additional 15 employees on our health insurance that we previously budgeted for. So what does this all mean once this clicks? So putting all these numbers together, we are forecasting a deficit at year end of around $446,000. You can see based on the DESI categories, the way it is all divided out. But one good thing is between all the hard work of the leadership team and district administration, we all came together and went through almost a line-by-line analysis and spent hours diving through each account, and they've came up with a curtailment amount of roughly $200,000. This is probably the brightest news I've heard since I've been here, because as a result, we're looking at a new curtailment deficit of approximately $233,000. That is what,
Hey.
yeah, it's the lowest number yet. That is what we're forecasting for the end of the year. And one good thing to mention to this is if this comes true and the year ends like this, there is enough circuit breaker reserve to cover this, so we will, if it holds true, end the year at roughly 0.
That would be awesome.
Instead of the
Good job.
2.3%, right?
Correct. That's only if we
Yeah.
keep to the curtailment and
Okay.
go with
Wow.
the same
Thank
game
you.
And I think this is important to say when we're going on our budget and talking about it, that the towns understand what we've come into, coming into this year as.
When we do
And our
our joint
budget.
meeting, can we add this in?
It makes
I-
me
I-
a little nervous because it can still change.
can
Well,
still
so
go.
Still a lot
I-
of volatility.
But
Yeah. Like,
to
I
show
don't
where
think
we're
we should.
starting, to show how sharp the pencils actually are, right? These are things that we hear constantly. What are you doing to cut? How are you, creatively solving these problems, right? This is showing the hard work that is being done, right? And it is fluid, which I'm gonna say most in the room would understand, but at the same time, they also have to understand how difficult a process this is and appreciate the work that goes into it. You deserve kudos for this.
Yes.
So I would like to see, even if it's not as in-depth, just a little touch of this when presenting to the joint boards.
May I ask a question? So that 13% number that we were looking at, if this holds true, are we looking at just over 10, like 10 and change?
Are you talking about the 21 budget?
Yeah.
Sadly, this has
Nothing.
no bearing on that.
Okay. I thought this was the,
No, this is
Carrying
this
over.
year's forecast.
Okay.
So it's
'Cause-
separate from next year's budget.
So I see where the confusion is, but what it does is it still rises the base,
Yep.
right? Which is what makes that year-over-year number,
Not as drastic.
right? So, but the real number is still that 39 million large
okay. Okay.
sum.
Understood.
So just lastly, due to this, we were asked to put together some budget transfers. So as of right now, there really is only 2 accounts we can transfer money out of. As you saw before, most of them are still in a deficit. So at this time, we're asking you to think about these transfers and actually vote on them next time. We didn't get these to you ahead of time to review, so we're not asking you to make a decision now. You can spend the next week or two going through the numbers, and at next meeting, we'll ask you to take a vote. These 2 transfers basically shore up the budget to actual expense reclassifications this year, and also transfers money that we've realized from savings from district administrative salaries to cover the additional health insurance enrollment. So with that, we will answer any questions if you still have them.
Great job, guys, on this, and a lot of hard work I know went into this, and I know, Vinny, you've been doing overtime, trying to fix accounts, trying to figure out where to get savings, and doing it kind of all on your own to start off with. So, thank you, I appreciate
I
all the
couldn't
work.
have done it without Julie and the leadership team, and kind of Alan's team stepping up too and not hiring enough staff either, so everyone's kind of done their own portion of it, so I can't take all the credit.
But people have been approaching me and are thrilled with you as a team. The amount of work you've done, you see here. Dawn, our backup finance guy, said your grasp of the financial situation is outstanding, and your understanding of finance is phenomenal. So he approached me about that as well, so, for both of you.
It's been fun and challenging. I keep telling Vinny this is fun.
Yeah, it's an adventure.
Don't lie to 'em.
Do we have any idea why kids are choicing out?
I'll get you that number. So what I noticed was this year is a lot of the kids that were added that weren't on there last year, are actually juniors and seniors. So if I had to take a guess, their parents moved in their last year of school and they just want to continue in the other district they came from. I'm just guessing on that, just on what the data shows. But I can tell you how many kids we have now out.
We can also cross that with enrollment data too, to see when did they enter the like, were they here?
What's the
prior?
choice
It just would be,
number?
it just seems our numbers getting larger on that, and just would be interesting to know if we have any research on why. How much do we pay for choice?
5,000.
out-
5,000 again.
5,000 too, okay.
So right now we have, it looks like
So
17 kids going out.
Should that be on the screen?
Yep, doesn't show anything.
Thank you.
I'll get rid of this too.
FERPA.
And what was it last year, do you know?
It was about 8 kids last year.
Wow, that's almost double.
It's almost doubled. Yep.
I would really like to know what those numbers are, because that, I mean, it doubled. You know, I mean, I know it's smaller, but how,
The number of kids choicing out of the district doubled?
yes.
More than doubled from 8 to 17? Is that my understanding?
Correct.
Thank you.
But if they're juniors and seniors, they're only going to be on the books for a year or two, so.
Say that again?
I said if they're juniors and seniors, they'll only be on the books for a year, two.
So on the 5th, we'll ask for those transfers. We'll ask for that as an
Okay.
action item.
Transfers on the 5th?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Vinny, why don't you keep the mic and move on to the review of the audit firm?
Okay, so just give you a brief rundown. On December 6th, I sent out a request for quotes to 3 auditing firms. They were Melanson Heath, Clifton Larson Allen, and Powers and Sullivan. All 3 firms responded by the deadline. Melanson and Heath, as you can see in the packet, put in a quote of roughly $29,500. Powers and Sullivan came in at $28,500. And Clifton Larson Allen came in at $28,000 even. I believe these results show that the district has been receiving services at the current market rates. And it's my recommendation that the district continue with Powers and Sullivan, our current auditing firm. Powers and Sullivan has not only been extremely dependable, but they've provided a high level of guidance to administration over the years. They will bring a level of continuity in a year of extreme turnover and change. They come along with prior history of the district, which I believe will benefit us during this transition. In addition, the time not spent on onboarding the new audit firm will come in handy over the next year. But with all due respect, we know that the school committee yields the power of picking the auditing firm, so whichever company you guys do so choose, we will work with them regardless.
Well, I want to thank you, first of all, Vinny, for doing this. I know I'm the one who asked for this, so I do appreciate you going above and beyond on this, because I know you had a lot going on. And I just wanted to kind of make sure that we, you know, checked out what else was out there, considering that we had last said, let's next time
Look at it.
So I thank you.
Yep.
Would you like a motion, or do we want to, I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve Vincent Leone's recommendation for Powers and Sullivan to be selected for our auditing firm to continue.
Second?
Is that for 3 years?
That's correct. 3 years.
For a 3-year contract.
Second?
Any discussion?
Any questions, Michelle?
No.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Vinny.
Thank you, Vinny. Ty?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Peter?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much again.
All right, 2021 school committee calendar, meeting schedule.
Can I just ask real fast before we're talking about this? I know you want to bring this, this is normally not brought up till the new school committee reorganizes, just so the new members have a chance, especially whoever gets voted in as chair, to decide. Could we possibly wait till then, or is there a reason we're talking about it now?
It looks like the last time it was voted on in January, so we're just trying to make sure that we're following a time schedule that's familiar.
Yeah, I don't remember voting on one when I came on board, but I could be wrong.
It maintains your current schedule of meeting every other Wednesday with the exception of school holidays.
I think the last time when we voted the schedule, it was for like the current year for the next 6 months.
Yeah, we never did a year out. It was usually the chair, the incoming chair then works on the schedule starting for July on, is what had happened.
Okay, that's fine. We just wanted to make sure we weren't missing anything.
All right, so we could table that.
Thank you.
No problem tabling anything right now. Then up next is donations.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick because I don't have all the information in this big packet, sorry. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the donation from Thurston Foods for $150.
Second?
Ty?
Yes.
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 Peter?
Yes, and thank you.
Yes?
Michelle Bailey?
Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much.
So just to add a little detail, the $860 from the Friends of Winthrop was for a field trip. The fifth graders went to a Christmas carol at the North Shore Music Theater, and I know it was a really great experience for all the kids. And then the $150 from Thurston was part of the leadership team's holiday gathering that we were able to fully sponsor this year,
Okay.
which was another cost-saving measure, and we're so grateful for our community partners for that.
Awesome.
Great, thank you. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the donation from the Friends of Winthrop for the amount of $860.
Second?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes, and thank you.
Michelle?
Yes, thank you.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much, Friends of Winthrop. All right. On to the superintendent's report.
I have two very quick updates. One, just to kind of plant a seed for something really exciting that we are starting to do in partnership with both towns and our students. Actually, we're hoping that our students will really lead the way in creating a greener, cleaner Hamilton Wenham. That's not our official tagline yet. The students were challenged with coming up with a hashtag and a tagline, but we are looking at creating a multi-year plan with the ultimate goal of becoming a zero-waste school community. We also hope to hold at least one day per year with community-based projects like landscaping, painting, et cetera, at each school to foster civic pride in our schools. We're thinking about ideas like implementing a green cleaning program using Green Seal products in partnership with our facilities and maintenance department. Also, when feasible, we're looking to order reusable, recyclable, and compostable products for our schools. We want to increase recycling and composting. The students want to transition from plastic silverware to reusable silverware. I mean, the amount of energy. We met with three of our environmental club students and one member from the National Honor Society, and it was like you couldn't rein in all of the ideas that they had. So we're super excited. Danielle Pertucci, our wellness coordinator, and I think she's K-12, health and wellness advisor, is part of that committee along with our director of facilities. Alan Topier, as our IT director, is also passionate about creating authentic experiences for kids, and so he was a member of that initial conversation. Danielle and I are going to meet to kind of flesh out a template where we can capture the ideas and kind of pace things out. But you might have seen already some things in the high school, like, did you know? And then it's like facts about our consumption and our usage of plastic bottles. One of the things our students shared with us is that there's this kind of feeling and thought at the high school that the drinking water may not be as high quality as our students would like. So many people carry around reusable water bottles, but in fact they're buying like little plastic bottles and filling up their reusable bottles because they don't have confidence in the quality of the water. So we're looking at testing the water, replacing rusty or old looking water fountains so that everything's pristine and clean, and our students can be making the healthy choices that they clearly want to be able to do. We're also looking at reducing energy consumption by investigating renewable energy, upgrading lighting and HVAC systems and other building upgrades over the next few years. And it connects directly with that strategic blueprint that you all just approved tonight, so thank you for that. And it really aligns perfectly with our Portrait of a Graduate. And so we feel like this is just an example of when you give students the space and you empower them to be decision makers, they will really exceed our expectations every time.
And didn't we have some issues where we turned off water fountains and sinks because they're so bad at elementaries?
I'm not sure about that. I know the individual sinks in some of the classrooms are like just past their useful life, and some of them are not functioning anymore. But specifically in the high school CAF, there was like a metal refillable station that is, again, like past its age. And so I know that the director of facilities is looking at grant opportunities and trying to find a way to fund one of those kind of refillable stations that you see pretty much everywhere now, Whole Foods and whatnot. Yeah, where it counts the bottles.
Didn't the state just roll out something, a grant of replacing all the fountains, bubblers in the schools?
So we're looking into that. I did hear on NPR the other morning when I was coming in that they're having free lead testing for all of the schools, and there are grant monies available for different initiatives. So we're trying to kind of right now put our feelers out and see what's out there and how we can partner with both towns. Our hope, some of the students are seniors, so they're like, when is this going to happen? They want to see it happen before they graduate. I was going to say retire, before they graduate. So we're really starting the idea of a weekly sort of like drip, if you will, with did you know this, did you know that, did you know how many water bottles we use, did you know how much paper we consume? That's a shocking statistic. And then our hope is that for Earth Day in April that we could do a joint sort of 2 towns, 1 community launch of some different sustainability initiatives. So super exciting. Just wanted to know about that. And then I think yesterday we sent out a letter that was drafted by our nursing team just informing everyone about different proactive measures that they can be taking during flu season. We do have some incidents where students in our district have been hospitalized because of the flu, and so we want everyone to just be aware and know the warning signs. There were also some parent resources linked into that document, and we're encouraging lots of hand washing. Hand sanitizer is good, hand washing is better. So really trying to promote that to keep everybody safe in our schools. The one other thing I would add is that when our new director of facilities came on, he purchased, I think they're called electrostatic machines, which are used to sanitize hard surfaces. And so when we know, he's in communication with nurses and building principals, and when we know there's like an uptick of the stomach bug or some other type of illness, we can go in and deep clean classrooms and hard surfaces around the school to try to minimize the impact of those illnesses. And so that's my reports for tonight.
Thank you.
Great. I've got nothing for the chair report, so we'll move right over to committee reports. Capital Financial Planning Subcommittee. What you got?
So we met last night and had 3 main topics that we discussed. One is a deeper discussion about the FY21 budget and providing some guidance to administration on different options with regard to the tentative budget and figuring out ways to reduce that somehow. Second topic was setting an agenda or proposed agenda for our meeting with the joint select boards and FinComs on the 29th. Providing them some information, hearing from them, the 2 towns, about what the about what the situation, the financial situation, or the budget situation is with the two towns. We gave Dr. Kuchenberger some guidance. She's meeting with the town manager, town administrator next Monday. And then the third topic is the continued discussion about moving forward on the MOU with the turf committee and what else we need to have in place in order to keep that project moving forward. We will have another meeting on February 4th to continue the discussion about the FY21 budget and hopefully come back. We will have a recommendation for the full committee at the next meeting on, look at my calendar.
February 12th.
February 12th. And I believe we have, so we have another meeting on the February 4th and another meeting on February 11th. February 11th really was to try to, again, keep the MOU moving forward as well, so that's specific. So February 4th is solely devoted to the budget. February 11th, because it's right before the 12th, would not be necessarily a budget discussion, but would be to focus and try to keep the MOU moving forward. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Policy Subcommittee.
Do you have any? Michelle, do you want to give an update on the policy subcommittee? Michelle?
All right, first up, we have the school committee operating protocol. What?
So I could speak to that a little bit
You.
since we're having some connection. Oh, there she goes.
Okay, do you want to give an update? Or no?
The only thing I wanted to say is that Peter had relayed to me that there was a question about that policy that had to do with transportation and cars. And okay, so that only, just let me turn off the volume here, sorry. So the question, it sounded like from Jean, was like, do we cover all aspects of that? And I think we didn't in some ways, because that policy is only related to when can staff transport students in cars. But the question was really about like what happens when the bus doesn't show up for sporting events and the like. And Craig had communicated to us that the sports, whatever, athletic department has forms that parents sign, and that they have very strict guidelines about those kinds of things, so that we really aren't in need of a policy for that, because that's guided by the procedures that they have. So, does that answer that question?
It does, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
So Michelle, do
I
you,
guess I don't really have an update, because this is a second reading, and that was kind of my understanding, the only real question from the last time.
Michelle, before that on the agenda, it talks about the school committee operating protocol. Do you want to just communicate the plan for that? Or would you like me to?
So you have been collecting the data,
Yep.
and then for the last few meetings, we haven't been filling them out. So now the policy working group needs to look at the data so that we can sort of like reevaluate the protocols, that is my understanding.
Yep, and I think we plan to do that at the next policy subcommittee meeting.
Yes.
That's all.
Correct, that's correct.
All right.
So do we want to make a motion, me to make a motion since, or do you want Michelle to make the motion since?
You can make the motion.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the school committee policy in section C as a second reading.
You
Second?
have to use the word inform.
Inform.
Second.
Any discussion? Great. Ty?
Yes.
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Michelle Bailey?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Sorry.
All right.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the second reading of the school policy E, inform.
Second.
Any discussion? Ty?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
I'm a yes. I'm learning everybody's name today.
Sorry.
Do you want to set a next meeting date, or?
We're waiting on something.
Okay, that's good enough for me. Negotiations Subcommittee,
Our next meeting is February 4th at 4:30 in Central. We'll be discussing and reviewing our upcoming contracts that will be up for renewal, as well as I'll discuss what I gleaned from the Gloucester open bargaining session. So that's it.
sounds thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda.
I have, I just want to remove the November 6, 2019 minutes because they've already been approved. And it says so in November 20th minutes.
Very efficient.
All right, let's get a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as stated, except for November 6, 2019 meeting minutes, as they were already approved.
Second?
Ty?
Yes.
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 Peter?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Topics for future meetings. I wrote down paper. We have to stop with these 300-page packets.
Please.
We're in a budget crisis, people. I know I still need to go meet with Alan about getting my iPad. So we've tried to meet up a few times, but I'll get on that. Let's figure out what we need. Let's make this a goal, that we could sort of, over the next month or two, really try and get away from this.
Well, with an app like Notability, and there's others that you can have a PDF and you can write your notes right on the PDF. You can zoom in, write a note, zoom back out.
I'm a tangible person, there's certain things, I think the cover sheet's probably a good thing that still needs to be printed out, but
Agree.
you can't even reference half this stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to go through this.
And it's a shame. So that's just
Bound?
something.
Janelle
Are we
would
bound
greatly
by anything
appreciate
to always have a paper copy available of everything?
We can always have one paper. No, we don't have to. We have to have them available. We do keep a binder of them, but in today's day and age, a lot of things are digitized as long as you have a system for recalling it. And they're all on our website, and the minutes are getting up there. So
I think it's a lot of us have to sort of look to ourselves and breaking our habits of relying on, flipping through a tangible, and there's nothing wrong with that, but
Can we
there's
have,
4 reams of paper on the table right now that are going to be recycled.
could we have a little training session on how to use something like Notability? That we can take notes on our documents, our
So
PDFs?
I think what's tricky about that is everyone's going to have their own what tool they want to use. Like I would never want to use that, but you would, and you should, and that's what's great about technology. I know that Alan also is very much about like what does the end user want to use, and if you let me know when you want to have a training session on that, he'll learn about it if he doesn't already know about it, and would be happy to support you in that. The other part of it too is, it's not just the paper, it's the sheer amount of man hours
Right.
that it takes to do this. And it's like one of those things that you think, oh, it's just copies, but
I
no,
happen to
it doesn't work like that.
I happened to call Janelle during the middle of it today, so it was fresh on my mind. So I could hear her stroking out through the phone. Anything else?
But if there is I would think even if there's someone who's like, I don't feel totally ready to go paperless, like at least we could make one copy as opposed to we make 10 for the meeting. So you can just let me know that in a private way.
David, do you just want to remind everybody of the meeting next week?
What do we have?
The joint
committee
meeting.
Next Wednesday,
At 7 PM.
7. All right, I was wondering for 6. So, yes, we have a meeting of all, the joint committee meeting. Excuse me, this is always the fun one. Next Wednesday, 7 PM. Gonna be right here. Be there. So,
Are there any other requests for the next meeting?
The next full school committee meeting?
Yeah, we have 2 back-to-back. It'll be the 5th and the 12th back-to-back. So if there's,
because we need the votes, right?
just if we don't have a lot on that agenda, do we need the meeting, I guess would be my question.
On the 5th?
Yeah.
We'll float that out into cyberspace, and I have a feeling if Michelle sees that and wants something, she'll let us know that we need to have it. It's already there, so we can keep it, but it's really easy to cancel it if we don't.
Okay.
And I don't think anyone would really mind. All right, someone make
I
a
move
motion.
that we adjourn at 10:04.
Second.
So, all those in favor? I almost jumped the gun. So, yeah.
Good job, everybody.
Oh, my God.